The Legacy of Professions starting from Danmachi. Chapter 1. Long ago, the high gods of the divine realm descended to this world in search of thrills, the mortal realm where their children lived. Then the gods resolved to remain here forever, sealing away their divine might so they could enjoy cramped, inconvenient lives among their people. To mortals the gods bequeathed a gift, a power called Falna, for battling monsters. Any mortal who received it became that god's retainer, family. The gods founded countless familias, granted Falna to mortals, and at the mouth of the dungeon raised the great labyrinth city, Orario. Right now, in one of Orario's sewers, a boy wearing a stainless steel basin on his head slowly poked it out, then yanked it back the next instant. Yes, this boy was the most cliché of clichés, a transmigrator, complete with a cheat called the class inheritance system. That morning, 24-year-old Liu Qiming had been washing up. He'd just picked up his brand new basin to fetch water when, flash, he landed in this world, inside a sewer. While he was still wondering how he'd gotten there, a sultry mechanical voice echoed in his skull. Ding! Transmigrator number 10,086 has successfully arrived in the labyrinth city Orario. Who's there? Show yourself. Startled, Liu Qiming whipped the basin up like a weapon, ready to clobber whoever had ambushed him. Then the voice rang out again. Host location confirmed safe. Initiating data transmission. The next second, basin in hand, Liu Qiming collapsed, the basin slipped from his grip and clanged down over his head. Ow, 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 dying here. My brain's shaking. A long while later he crawled up, rubbing his skull, crouched, and straightened the basin on his head. Sifting through the flood of data, he peeked around, and realized nothing looked like home. Apart from tourist spots, you'd never see medieval fantasy buildings like these in modern times. He lived in China, nowhere near any such attraction, you'd have to leave the country to find them. So, I really crossed over. This isn't a dream. Confirmed. Successful transmigration. Mental state stable. Dream hypothesis rejected. The mechanical Oni-san voice answered him without a shred of emotion, crushing any hope that he was still asleep. Crap. Once he accepted it wasn't a dream, Liu Qiming huddled even smaller. According to the info dump, he'd landed inside an anime he'd once watched. Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon? In that story the kid Bell joined Hestia's familia, dived the dungeon, and collected girls. But the show made it clear, might makes right here, and most adventurers were no saints. He himself had grown up in peaceful society, the only things he'd ever killed were a few chickens. If any adventurer spotted him, he'd die before he knew what hit him. Thinking that, Liu Qiming whispered, "System." Ding. A translucent blue interface popped into view, displaying a 16 or 17-year-old boy and a column of text. Name: Liu Qiming. Age: 16. Mind: 710. Strength: 910. Agility: 810. Endurance: 910. Class: none. Liu Qiming's hands trembled as he stared. Only now did he believe he'd really crossed. Modern Earth had nothing close to this kind of projection tech. I actually transmigrated, with a system, no less, and regressed from 24 to 16. The face on the screen was unmistakably himself at 16, short black hair, dark eyes, a coolly handsome face. For the system, during transit it had rebuilt his body. His stats hadn't dropped, but he'd reverted to 16. He was the system's 10,086th pick. The previous 10,885 had either died mid-jump or failed their first world's quest and been abandoned there. Still, compared with those who died en route, the dropouts had it better. They kept their inherited class and could survive in that world. They'd only lost the chance to travel onward and unlock new classes. Yes, the system's sole purpose was to forge mighty inheritors. For what end? That was the end. Ferry its host across worlds to unlock new classes. As the host, Liu Qiming had one job: train, grow his inherited class, complete quests, and hop worlds to unlock still more classes. In other words, apart from system quests he could do whatever he wanted: conquer the world, build a colossal harem, relive first times, every day, anything. While he daydreamed, the Oni-san voice returned. Ding. Data reception complete. Initiate first-class inheritance. Yes. A colorful wheel appeared before him. Each hue stood for a class: green farmer, blood red warrior, black assassin, purple mage, crimson alchemist. Before he could even focus, the wheel began to spin. Mage. 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 Liu Qiming kept chanting under his breath, praying the wheel would land on mage. A hardcore otaku who devoured countless anime and novels, he had a natural soft spot for the class, flashy, stylish, and you got to stand in the back row and spam spells. It definitely wasn't because he was too chicken to tank up front. And it certainly had nothing to do with the invisibility spell that might let him sneak into the women's bath. Under his breathless chant the wheel slowed, the golden pointer sliding to a stop on the black wedge. Crap, I'm screwed. Before he could finish the lament, the system spoke. Congratulations, host. You have inherited the assassin class, exclusive skill tree unlocked. Liu Qiming collapsed into the classic, Ors, pose. Assassin. He knew the archetype all too well. Crazy burst, lightning speed, but made of glass, one stray AoE and you were toast. He'd wanted mage, stack 10 layers of magic shields and chill in the back row, or even warrior, at least they were tanky and wouldn't get one shot by a random cleave. The system ignored his whining. The mechanical sultry voice resumed. Importing class legacy, congratulations, all attributes raised, spirit +8, strength +6, agility +1-2, vitality +6. Congratulations, skill tree unlocked. A warm current blossomed in his chest and flowed through every limb, a sensation like peak euphoria. Refreshing, exhilarating. After a few minutes the warmth faded, replaced by raw power. He felt he could leap and pierce the sky with a single hop. System, are you sure this is an assassin legacy? He lifted his hands in wonder, long, pale fingers clenched. He punched the air. Whoosh! Boom! His fist shot forward like a cannonball, burying itself in the sewer wall up to the forearm. No pain, like punching tofu. He was certain his strength had at least quintupled, his agility increased tenfold. The flies buzzing around looked like slow-motion replays. Evidently the agility boost came with dynamic vision and reflexes. The other stats must scale just as brutally. Host, this is indeed the assassin legacy. Do not question the system's professionalism. Please allocate skill points. You got it. Suppressing his excitement, he studied the pale blue interface. Aside from agility at 20, every stat was 15. He'd thought 10 was the human ceiling. Now each point past 10 doubled everything. He tapped the bottom of the panel, the empty legacy slot now read assassin. The moment his finger touched it, the stats page dissolved into an inverted skill tree. Heart pounding, he scanned the branches. Dual blade mastery, unrivaled, soul blade, lightning reflex, weakness perception. Crescent arc, extreme pursuit, flicker step. Death god. 9 skills shaped an upside-down pyramid. Each tier required every skill above it to hit level 3 before unlocking the next. Every skill had 5 ranks: beginner, adept, expert, master, grandmaster. He had 5 points, enough to max 1 tier -1 skill or light up the entire first row. Well, of course I'm lighting them all. Early game was about broad survivability, not dumping everything into one gimmick, otherwise you die clueless to some random mechanic. He tapped all 5. Skills flared, knowledge flooding his mind as muscles twitched. Arc flash, twin blade thrust, finishing slash, whirling dance, spiral pierce, arc chain, shadow bolt, gale rampage, sky step, side shift, an entire combo list etched itself into muscle memory. No cooldowns. As long as stamina and mana held, he could spam ultimates forever. And this was only tier 1, what lay above must be monstrous. System, you're the real MVP. He stared at his pale hands. Give him 2 daggers and he could steamroll 100 pre-legacy versions of himself without breaking a sweat. Apart from unrivaled, every unlocked skill was passive. Dual blade mastery boosted proficiency. Even at rank 1 he could shave someone bald with twin swords without a nick. Soul blade let him bind a pair of daggers to his soul. They'd grow with him and reforge in his soul even if destroyed. No more swapping gear or fear of theft, he could store them inside his spirit. Lightning reflex further cranked nerves and reaction speed. Weakness perception let him spot fatal flaws at a glance. The star was unrivaled. At rank 1 it tripled all stats for 450 seconds, his 20 agility would rocket to 60, a 40-fold boost over baseline. The mana cost was steep, 450 megapixels for 7.5 minutes, but still twice Ultraman's 3-minute limit. What more could a guy want? Ding. Host has accepted the Assassin class legacy and unlocked the corresponding skill. World exclusive quest, Hero Among Heroes initiated. Please complete within the allotted time. Current countdown, 364 days 16 hours 28 minutes and 0 seconds. Current progress, 0.1 millionths. 2 system notifications rang in Liu Qiming's head in quick succession. The floating screen before him flipped to page 1, the countdown and progress figure plastered at the very top. Liu Qiming stared blankly, bending his fingers to count the zeros behind the 1. 1, 2, 6, 1 million. He gaped at the figure. 1 million, what the hell? And the system only counted dungeon monsters or humans blessed with grace, ordinary animals and people didn't register. Hey, system, did you mess up? This is an assassin quest, right? Maybe you added a few extra zeros. Ding. Host, rest assured, the quest target is calibrated to the class characteristics, no error exists. Liu Qiming felt his soul leave his body. Even if enemies stood still for him to cut down, 1 million swings would exhaust him to death, let alone the fact his targets were monsters or adventurers with superhuman power, they wouldn't line up like practice dummies. If he were a mage he could just nuke the map, but an assassin, wait, his version of assassin could apparently go Musou mode. So maybe, just maybe, there was a sliver of hope. He did the math. 1 million divided by 365 days came to roughly 2,739.726 monsters or adventurers per day, round up to 2,740. Didn't sound impossible. He exhaled. Liu Qiming drew a deep breath and stared solemnly at the countdown and counter. Only one thing left to confirm. System. If I fail the quest, will I die? Ding. This system's purpose is to cultivate the strongest legacy holder. Should the host fail, the system will detach and seek a new host. The host will not die and will retain the currently unlocked class. So if I fail, I lose the chance to travel to other worlds and unlock other classes. Ding. Correct. Relief washed over him. As long as he didn't court death, his life wasn't on the line. But having finally escaped his previous boring life, and gained entry into his favorite anime world, how could he give up? According to the system's info, the more class legacies he gathered, the higher his authority, letting him hop to any world he wished. The thought widened his grin. Irie, Nanase Ren, Takab Eri, Karaki Reina, here I come. Next stop, the Adventurer Guild to ask how to enter the dungeon. With that, Liu Qiming nimbly leapt out of the sewer, stainless steel basin perched on his head, and strolled outside. Thanks to the system, the once foreign text now read like his mother tongue. After asking a tattered-dressed young woman for directions, and politely declining her invitation for free tea while promising future patronage of her tea house, he finally extracted himself. Such warm hospitality. When I said I had no money she still offered free tea. What a sweetheart. He marveled that this truly was an anime world, everyone so kind. Weapons could wait, he had no local currency yet, and with his current strength the upper floor monsters were pushovers as long as he didn't dive too deep. Once he earned cash, weapons would follow, and he could patronize that girl's tea shop. She'd mentioned several best friends who also ran tea houses, he'd have to support them too. Adventurer Guild. Liu Qiming pushed open the doors, steel basin still balanced on his head. Adventurers inside glanced over, seeing an unknown kid, they instantly lost interest. New faces appeared daily, most wouldn't survive the dungeon anyway. Whoa. So this is the Adventurer Guild. Like a country bumpkin in the big city, he gawked at everything, especially the chestnut-haired, pointy-eared receptionist in black and white office attire and silver-rimmed glasses. Hello. How may I help you? Aina watched the black-haired, black-eyed boy approach, clearly a recent arrival to Orario. Registration or quest posting? Hi. I've just arrived from the east and want to register as an adventurer. Certainly. Aina smoothly pulled out a form and placed it before him. Please fill in your details and pay 1,000 valis. Ah. The mention of money froze him, he was penniless. Then he noticed the basin on his head. Old buddy, you crossed worlds with me, surely you won't mind. After confirming his buddy gave silent consent, he happily began scribbling. What do you mean it can't talk? A basin that transcends dimensions is just a bit shy. Minutes later he handed the completed sheet back. Let's see, Liu Qiming, class, assassin, professionally trained back home. Aina skimmed until her gaze snapped to one line, eyes widening. Mr. Liu Qiming, why is the familia column blank? Because I don't have one. He answered matter-of-factly, no familia, and none planned. For the sake of his quest, joining one didn't suit him. Aina stared at Liu Qiming, who stood there with perfect confidence, and wondered if she'd bumped into a fool. There was no rule that said you had to possess a falna to register as an adventurer or enter the dungeon. But for an ordinary person without a falna, going in was basically suicide. Liu Qiming, I suggest you join a god's familia first, receive a falna, and only then register. Once you're in a familia, not only will your strength grow faster, you'll also have reliable teammates, much safer than going in alone. Aina phrased it as gently as she could. She'd seen too many youngsters from other countries arrive in Orario, every one of them brimming with self-confidence, heading into the dungeon solo. Most ended up killed by monsters on the upper floors, the handful who survived were usually broken by the experience, and only a few swallowed their pride and joined a familia. No worries, I'm very confident in my own strength. Liu Qiming hurriedly refused the moment the pretty elven clerk advised him to join a familia and form a party. He couldn't join any god's familia right now, not even Hestia's. Because once he did, his mercenary plan would fall apart. Yes, this was the best strategy he'd come up with. Keep growing stronger, let his fame spread, then announce that, for the right price, he'd temporarily join any expedition. That way he could reach the deep floors where stronger monsters roamed, speeding up his quest progress. He had considered diving deep alone, but maps of the upper floors were publicly sold. Anything deeper was a closely guarded secret of the big familias. And Liu Qiming had a terrible sense of direction. Get lost down there and he might set a new record for the most shameful death of a reincarnator, starving because he couldn't find the exit. For that reason he wouldn't join a familia yet. If a rival familia later hired him, he'd have to watch for monsters and watch his back at the same time. With his system, killing monsters gave experience, so his growth rate outpaced any falna anyway. Once his quest was nearly done, he wouldn't mind picking up a falna if the chance arose. Seeing his resolve, Aina sighed. Rookies like him were a dime a dozen. Still, his strength looked decent, he'd probably make it back alive. After one trip he'd realize the gulf between having a falna and not, and he'd come crawling to a familia. With that thought, she folded his form and held out a slender white hand. Since you're so confident, pay the fee and I'll register you. Thanks, pretty lady. Liu Qiming grinned, reached up, lifted the stainless steel basin off his head, and set it in her palm. Aina stared at the basin, then at his smiling face, a huge question mark floating above her head. Something wrong, sis. He widened his eyes in an exaggerated show of innocence. We only accept Valis, not this. She fished out a coin, clinked it against the basin, and set both on the counter. What? You won't take a stainless steel basin? Back home these are premium goods, people trade them for old phones and fridges. Liu Qiming gaped, as though the refusal were an international scandal. Look, we really don't. Why not work a few days? 1,000 Valis is easy to earn. Work? No way. My folks told me, never work a day in your life, just swap basins or kill monsters to get by. Then, as if struck by genius, he beamed at her. Tell you what, lend me 1,000 Valis, keep the basin as collateral, and I'll pay you back tenfold when I return. All right. Dazed by his earnest stare, Aina nodded and slid 1,000 Valis coin across the counter. Take the loan, but keep the basin, just bring back my Valis. Thanks a ton. He clasped her small hand gratefully. Sweet, gentle Aina, just like in the story, a little charm and she caved. He hadn't recognized her at first glance inside the guild, but soon realized she was the kindly elf who'd looked after Belle in the original tale. Once he knew, selling out his stainless steel brother for seed money seemed perfectly reasonable. Moments later, Aina finished registering him. Off to the dungeon, then. Wait for me, I'll be back to pay you soon. He waved and strode out. A short walk away, a colossal gray-white tower stabbed the sky, the dungeon's entrance. Good luck, come back alive, and my name's Aina. Got it, Aina. He flashed a smile and stepped outside. At the tower's gate, humans, beast men, elves, and every demi-human race streamed in and out. Many returning adventurers carried dead comrades or nursed fresh amputations. The surrounding veterans regarded the carnage with indifference, filing steadily onward. Right, let's go. Lu Qiming drew a deep breath and marched with the flow. He had to get used to this sight or he wouldn't survive. He refused to die here, refused to fail and lose his system. He would finish the quest. Learning there were other worlds only sharpened his resolve. He meant to see them all, meet every character once confined to a screen. And every world meant a brand new class, perhaps one day he'd even attain true immortality. In the dim corridor, the claustrophobic air carried a faint metallic tang of blood, while the roars of monsters echoed endlessly in his ears. Right now, Lu Qiming was cautiously crouched at a bend in the passage. Up ahead, 3 creatures with wolf heads, human bodies, and razor claws were prowling around. According to the intel Miss Aina had given Lu Qiming on the upper floors, these were called half-werewolves, only as strong as an average human, yet bloodthirsty, brutal, and utterly fearless of death. Individually weak, they moved in packs, add their suicidal ferocity and they became a nasty, disgusting nuisance found mainly on levels 1 to 4 of the dungeon. After confirming their identity, Lu Qiming's eyes sharpened. His body instinctively melted into the surroundings, his presence thinned to almost nothing as he soundlessly crept toward the 3 half-werewolves. It was a move from his inherited skill set, sidestep, a stealth technique used by assassins to hide and approach. This was his first time using it, and though the system had grafted the muscle memory into him, a faint trace of aura still leaked out. Still, it was more than enough for upper-floor monsters. Warg. Blood-red eyes flashed, the gray-white wolf head let out a cry, swiveling to scan its surroundings. Thick drool sprayed everywhere with the motion. Disgusting. Watching the spittle fly and smelling that rancid stench from behind the creature, Lu Qiming was glad he hadn't gone for a frontal assault. If that stuff got on him, he'd lose his appetite for the night. But how was he supposed to kill it? He was unarmed, and when it came to fists, he'd only been in 1 or 2 brawls, random flailing every time. While he wondered how to finish off the trio, he spotted the stainless steel basin overhead. Ha ha. Grinning wickedly, Lu Qiming pulled the basin down and measured it against a half-werewolf's skull. Arg. The 3 sensed something wrong, an unseen danger. Though they couldn't see him, beast instinct screamed that they were under threat. Had any adventurer been nearby, they would have seen a bizarre sight. 3 half-werewolves spinning warily, while in their blind spot a 16 or 17-year-old boy kept matching their turns, basin in hand, always staying out of sight. Clonk. A crisp impact rang through the passage, 1 wolf head shot off like a football and embedded itself in the wall. 1 down. Lu Qiming stepped out of stealth, a deep dent now glaring in the basin. Gurrah. The remaining 2 sprang at him with roars. Ha! With a shout to steel himself, Lu Qiming charged, swinging the basin. Stealth was pointless now, and that first blow had proved he was many times stronger than any half-werewolf. Clonk. Clonk. 2 more crisp thuds, both heads flew off, blood gushing from their necks. The bodies collapsed into black dust, leaving only thumb-sized purple magic stones. Huff. Huff. Hands on knees, Lu Qiming panted. Killing the trio hadn't been hard, but ending something with a human shape felt strange. Fear, dread, oppression, bewilderment, and a sliver of excitement. Ha 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 ha. He laughed a laugh he himself didn't understand, staring at his hands clutching the battered basin now smeared dark red with reeking blood and flecks of white gunk. A vivid reminder of what he'd just done. Across from him, several holes opened in the wall, revealing fleshy tissue inside. 1 by 1, dark goblins hatched out. Bring it. Madness flashed in his eyes. He raised the basin high and slammed it down on each goblin clinging to the wall. Clonk, clonk. After a flurry of blows, the wall was streaked with gory pulp that turned to black ash, leaving behind tiny magic stones. Ha ha ha, smash you all. Splattered head to toe with goblin and half-werewolf gore, Lu Qiming lifted his head, a twisted grin on his face, eyes brimming with bloodlust, utterly deranged. His manic laughter echoed down the corridor. Woo waa arg. Dozens more half-werewolves howled from farther down the tunnel, red eyes locked on the freakish youth, drool dripping from fangs as they flexed their claws. Hey, haha, hee hee. Bloodshot veins flooded his black pupils. The sudden slaughter had snapped his reason. The helpless loneliness of being thrust into this world had cracked under the dungeon's darkness and the bloodbath. Clatter. He flung the basin aside and vanished, reappearing in front of the pack. His fist whistled through the air and smashed the lead wolf's skull. Pop. Like a firework, the charging half-werewolf's head vanished. The body skidded onward before sliding to a stop. Die, die, die. Ha ha ha. Among the wolves, the black-haired youth flickered in and out, fists falling. One after another, the half-werewolves exploded under his monstrous strength, splattering the walls with gore. 5 minutes later, Liu Qiming stood blankly amid a corridor that looked like a slaughterhouse, scraps of meat and blood coating every wall, the stench of carnage thick in the air. Huff, huff, smack. He slapped himself hard. With the nearby monsters wiped out and no reinforcements yet arrived, a sliver of sanity returned. The sharp slap Liu Qiming gave himself jolted his mind fully awake. A wry smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. System, am I just a weakling? I've got power that completely eclipses ordinary people in this world, yet I still panicked so hard my mind cracked. Ding. This system does not understand the host's remark. This system is only responsible for inheriting the class. If the host fails the mission, the system will select a new host. The mechanical, sultry voice echoed in Liu Qiming's mind, utterly indifferent to what had just happened to him. TCH, fine, whatever. Hearing the system's voice in his head, Liu Qiming felt the ruinous pressure in his chest ease, just a little. At least he wasn't alone, the system was still with him. Thinking that, the blood-smeared boy smiled. System, can you switch to a lowly voice? A different one every day, and right now I want a proud Tsunere lowly. Ding. This system does not possess that function. TCH. Liu Qiming clicked his tongue and stopped teasing the system. He turned and walked over to the stainless steel basin he'd thrown aside earlier. Brother Basin, what happened to you? He picked the basin off the ground and looked mournfully at the huge dent in its bottom. Good thing he hadn't used it in that last clash, or it would have died a heroic death. He flipped the basin over and pressed the protruding dent back into place with one hand. Clang, clang, clang. After a bit of hammering, the basin was more or less back in shape, though the bottom was now dotted with clear fist marks. Brother Basin wouldn't mind. It had traveled through space and time with him, after all. Next up, loot collection. Liu Qiming looked at the magic stones scattered across the floor and grinned like a farmer seeing a bumper harvest. Holding the basin in his left hand, he squatted and began picking them up one by one. While gathering the stones, he opened his status panel. Name: Liu Qiming LV3 200 300ths. Age: 16. Spirit: 15.3. Strength: 15.3. Agility: 20.3. Physique: 15.3. Class: Assassin. Skill points: 0. Next to his name a level had appeared. Every stat had risen by 0.3. He also felt far more familiar with the moves in his memory. But when he saw the newly appeared skill points, his hand gathering magic stones slowed. System, what's with the skill point? Ding. The host gains 1 skill point every 5 levels. It is used to unlock class skills. Liu Qiming nodded. He was level 3, 2 more levels and he'd get another point. According to the quest log he'd just checked, it now read 51 millionths. He'd killed 50 monsters so far, 999,950 to go. System, what's the deal with my experience? Ding. The host's initial express is 100. Before level 10 each level requires 100 more express than the last. A normal monster on dungeon floor 1 gives 10 exp. Got it. Liu Qiming nodded. Now he understood. Before level 10 every level added 100 express to the requirement, and stronger monsters would give more express. Much better than games where the requirement doubled each level. Every level up also gave plus 0.1 to all stats and a skill point every 5 levels. To open the next tier of skills, assuming he'd put only 3 points in each skill, he'd need 10 skill points, meaning level 50 at the earliest. Then let's keep going. A dangerous curve pulled at his lips. He set the basin on the ground and looked toward the horde of monsters charging down the passage. Goblins, half-wolves, gremlins, ant creatures, nearly 100 monsters, rushed him, shrieking and drooling. Roar. Lu Qiming sucked in a breath, bellowed back, and sprinted straight at them, fist swinging. At the same time, a party returning from the middle floors heard the commotion. Veterans of countless battles, they recognized the sound of a large pack converging on someone. Captain, should we check it out? A half-elf girl turned toward the greatsword slung across a man's back. Familiar with the dungeon, she could tell from the roars that a mass of monsters had surrounded an adventurer. Yeah, let's take a look. The man glanced behind him at twin Amazon sisters. Ellie, Aaron, get ready. Good chance for you two to practice team tactics. Yes, Captain. The twin Lawless, looking about 14, nodded. They'd joined the Familia 2 months ago. Their rare berserker talent meant the hotter the fight, the faster they grew. To cultivate them, the Familia had escorted the rookies all the way from the upper to the middle floors. Along the way, teammates would kill most monsters, leaving just 2 for the twins to finish. After a month they'd grown from total novices into proper warriors. Hearing a large pack, the captain figured it was time to test them. By now Ellie and Aaron could solo the weakest mid-floor monsters, but they hadn't yet faced a swarm. A mob of first-floor beasts on the way back was perfect. As the unknown Familia approached, they saw countless tracks in the dust, easily over 100 monsters. Curiosity spiked. Which rookie didn't know to move after a fight and got surrounded by the scent of blood? They quickened their pace. Rounding a corner, they froze at the sight. A sea of monsters snarled and seethed. At their center, a black-haired boy flickered in and out of sight, smashing fist after fist onto monster skulls while letting out an eerie laugh. Bang, 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 heads burst like fireworks. Coupled with the boy's creepy laughter, the adventurers stood stunned. Surrounded by monsters, Lu Qiming's mouth twisted into a strange grin. The more creatures he killed, the louder and more excited his eerie laughter grew. At that moment, his mind was still clear enough to realize he was acting oddly, but he felt no discomfort. In fact, he felt fantastic. Flying blood, splattering brains, the monsters, death cries, all of it made his blood boil. The assassin techniques in his memory grew smoother, even bare-handed, every move flowed effortlessly. His strengthened body adapted with each swing. Slaughter became as natural as breathing, reflexes hardwired into muscle and bone. After casually exploding an ant-man's skull, he turned his red glowing eyes toward the corner of the tunnel, lips stretching wider, white teeth glinting. 3 goblins behind him seized the chance, raising their clubs to smash the back of his head. The next second, crisp pops rang out. The goblins' heads burst as Lu Qiming's left foot whipped around in an impossible arc. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. That wild, sinister laugh burst from his throat. Ignoring the onlookers in the corner, he resumed the massacre. Captain. The half-elf girl felt like prey the instant his gaze swept over them, sure the monster in human skin would charge over and shatter her skull. We're leaving. The greatsword-bearing captain wiped cold sweat and signaled the retreat. He already regretted coming. The adventurer inside wasn't some rookie but a bored berserker who slaughtered for fun. Ah, why go? Let's watch a bit more, Captain. Unlike their teammates, the little lawless Ellie and Aaron trembled, eyes gleaming faint red. They felt as if a whole new world had opened, so this was a true berserker. Each arrogant laugh, each skull shattered by those unstoppable fists, sent strange excitement through them, their athletic legs rubbed together, a weird thrill pooling low in their bellies. No. The captain glared at the two. They, too, carried the berserker gift. If they lost themselves one day, would they even spare their comrades? He grabbed their arms and marched toward the dungeon exit. He would not let his familia's newest members be tainted by that maniac. With proper guidance, the girls wouldn't end up like that. Plenty of adventurers in Orario had the berserker skill, yet none he'd seen were as crazed as the boy butchering monsters back there. Hey! Don't wanna. Ellie and Aaron thrashed, little heads shaking furiously, but the captain's level and strength left them helpless. They exchanged glances, then shouted toward Lu Qiming. Senior Berserker. We'll definitely come back. The captain froze at their yell, then hoisted the girls and sprinted away with the rest. Huh. Senior Berserker. Having just blown off a goblin's head, Lu Qiming glanced at the departing group and the struggling kids. He'd sensed them the moment they arrived, especially the 2 cute lawless watching him with stars in their eyes. He'd even flashed them a friendly grin. Why were they suddenly leaving, and calling him a berserker? He was clearly an assassin, every move a textbook one-hit kill. Wasn't that obvious? Why label him a berserker? He quivered with rage. Head lowering, he glared at the last few monsters. Fingers pressed together like a serpent's head. In the next instant, holes punched through each remaining skull, the bodies crumbled to ash. It must be because I don't have a weapon. Once I buy one, I'll show you what a real assassin looks like. Muttering, he walked over to Brother Stainless Steel Basin, the only thing in this cold world that still gave him a shred of warmth. He squatted, pot in left hand, right hand gathering the magic stones while opening his status screen. The top line read 200, he'd slain 150 monsters so far. His panel now showed. Quest countdown. 364 days 10 o'clock target. 201 millionths. Name. Liu Qiming LV7 500 600ths. Age. 16. Mind. 15.7. Strength. 15.7. Agility. 20.7. Endurance. 15.7. Class. Assassin. Skill points. 1. Satisfied, he nodded. Only 14 hours had passed since his arrival, 8 of them spent unconscious in a sewer and awakening his class. In the remaining 6 he'd registered as an adventurer and wiped out 200 monsters, that efficiency pleased him. Sure, he'd changed a bit, but no big deal, people adapt. He didn't mind the shift. He knew he'd come from a peaceful world where you could stroll safely at night, raised to be soft-hearted, kind, even a little timid. Not that kindness was wrong, but it wouldn't cut it here. This world had gods, adventurers, dungeon monsters. Many adventurers would stab comrades for profit or throw others to danger to save themselves. So he would change, grow cold, ruthless, blood-soaked if needed. They were all strangers anyway. At most he'd make sure any trouble he caused stayed on his own head. Whether he'd ever bond with anyone here, that was a problem for later. Humans are social creatures, though far stronger now. Inside he was still an ordinary kid learning to survive. 5 minutes later Liu Qiming stood up slowly, stretched and yawned. In the stainless steel basin in front of him was now a thin layer of magic stones plus a few fang-like drops. Then let's keep going. Hoisting the basin, Liu Qiming headed deeper into the dungeon. He was still far short of today's quota, 2,740, and had to push harder. The deeper he went, the denser the monsters became. Occasionally an elite showed up, each worth 20 experience points. The first time he met an elite, he'd excitedly punched it. It turned out to give only 10 extra express and a slightly bigger stone. The quest counter still ticked up by 1. He'd hoped stronger foes might count for more. Reality said he was dreaming. The system left no loopholes, demanding a solid million kills. At least even the weakest first floor mobs qualified. Besides, the dungeon differed from other worlds. Its monsters were endlessly spawned by the dungeon itself, so there was no risk of wiping them out. Calabash boys, come to your house at midnight, sleep in your bed, steal your mom. La 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 la. Smack smack smack. Liu Qiming casually smashed the freshly hatched wall spawn, punched out their lights, scooped up the stones and kept humming as he headed down. Ding dang dong dong, calabash boys, ding dang dong dong, steal your mom, la la la, calabash boys, steal your mom. That day every adventurer returning from the dungeon noticed something weird. A black-haired kid with a shiny metal basin on his head strolling through the upper floors singing off-key and one-punching monsters. He swaggered along, face twisted in a weird grin, moving ever forward. Word spread and adventurers crowded the guild hall to gossip. Did any of you run into him? A half-beast adventurer gulped his beer and stared across the table. Billy, you mean that weirdo on the upper floors? Yeah, never saw anyone so cocky, singing in the dungeon and coming out without a scratch. You bumped into him too. The next table leaned in. Right beside us, he lifted a hand and 5 heads popped like melons, couldn't even see how. Yes. That lord saved my life. A cat girl adventurer, her white ears twitching, blushed fiercely. On the 4th floor today our team was surrounded by elite wolf men when he appeared. In a flash every monster head burst like fireworks. She shyly fingered her ears, remembering how the savior had stroked them afterwards. It had felt so good she wished he'd do it again. As the chatter grew louder, everyone swapped stories about the strange figure. Nearby, the party Liu Qiming had met on the 1st floor listened in. 2 little Amazon sisters bounced over excitedly, adding what they'd seen. In the end the adventurers agreed. This had to be some mighty senior from a great familia who usually delved deep and had only now returned to Orario for fun. And out of boredom had gone to the dungeon to play with monsters. Behind the counter Aina listened, her eyes shifting from curious to dubious. Black hair, black eyes, a basin-like object on his head. The picture matched the rookie she'd registered that very morning, a kid with no familia and no falna. How had he become a legendary big shot, at least level 5 in their stories? He hadn't even owned the 1,000 Valis registration fee and still owed her money. She shook herself. It couldn't be Lu Qiming. Some high-level adventurer from a large familia must have returned to Orario and happened to share his coloring, maybe even his race. Still impossible as it was, she felt a flicker of expectation. She remembered the confident look on Lu Qiming's face when he'd left. Outside the sun was setting, adventurers filed into the guild to cash their loot. Aina focused on work, pushing the thought away. Here you go. An adventurer slid his magic stones across. Aina checked them, took the stones and counted out payment. 9,000 Valis, please count it. As she handed the coins over, the hall fell eerily silent, every head turning toward the door. What now? Following their gaze, she saw the doors wide open, a black-haired, black-eyed youth with a silver basin on his head standing there. His cold, handsome face was calm, ignoring the stares as he walked forward, leaving crimson footprints on the floor. When he reached the counter, his dark eyes fixed on the adventurer in his way. The man went white, left his freshly earned Valis on the counter and stepped aside with a nervous smile. Thanks. The youth gave a quiet word of gratitude, approached Aina, and a faint smile softened his icy features. Hey, I'm back, Miss Aina. Lu Qiming grinned at her stunned expression. He didn't know why she was frozen, but to him this girl, second person he'd met in this world who'd lent him money and worried about him, was already a friend. Why you, Lu Qiming, was that really you upstairs today? Aina stammered, finally realizing the unknown big shot everyone spoke of was the rookie who owed her 1,000 Valis. The upper dungeon. I was definitely up there today, but Miss Aina, how did you know? Lu Qiming looked at Aina, her shy little face, or so he imagined, her bashful voice, those slightly expectant eyes. Could it be, Miss Aina has fallen for me? The next second he hurled that ridiculous thought into the stratosphere. It had to be one of humanity's 3 great delusions. She likes me, I can turn this fight around, I'm actually strong. When it came to self-awareness, Lu Qiming still had a shred of common sense. Back in his original world he'd been a straight-up single dog. No way he could make Aina swoon in less than a day after arriving here. And he had zero desire to die of social cringe. He still remembered a buddy who'd added a pretty girl's contact info. She'd only ever send the occasional, haha, or, I'm off to shower, talk later. Yet the guy had burst in, proclaiming the girl must be into him. Why else would she share something as personal as when she showers? At the time Lu Qiming actually thought his pal had hit the jackpot. Then he took the phone and scrolled through the chat history. Holy crap, his friend had spammed hundreds of messages daily. I miss you, let's grab something good, I bought you this, plus endless transfer records. The girl happily pocketed the money and gifts without a twinge of guilt. But whenever the guy tried to ask her out, she'd dodge. Not feeling well, something came up, or the classic 7 p.m. I'm off to shower, followed by a noon the next day, I was so tired, just woke up. Lu Qiming handed the phone back and told him straight, you're just her cash cow and walking ATM, one more fish in her pond. The dude lost it, roaring not to insult his goddess. She's so pure, early to bed, wakes up the next afternoon, no way she's stringing me along. Then he spun on his heel, declared their friendship over, and stormed off. Truly, a simp meets a sticky end. Good luck talking sense into a dead-brained simp. The memory made Lu Qiming bite his lip hard. Eyes firm, he swore to stay clear-headed. Wise men don't fall in love. Lu Qiming, you don't know. Noticing nothing odd about his stare or tone, Aina pointed at his black hair and the stainless steel basin on his head. You massacred monsters on the upper floors today, dozens of adventurers saw it. Everyone's convinced you're some low-key big shot. Huh, that's it. He definitely hadn't expected that to be how she knew. A tiny part of him had hoped Aina had secretly tailed him, worried about a rookie like him. Well, how else would I know? Don't tell me you thought I sneaked into the dungeon to guard you. Aina looked at him with that amused smile, as if sizing up a flustered schoolboy. No. Of course not. I was just curious how you found out. Never once imagined you'd worry and secretly protect me. All right, my mistake. She said it, but the grin on her face wouldn't quit. Her smile felt like daggers through his heart. He raised his hand high, grabbed the stainless steel basin, and plonked it in front of her. HMPH. He gave a soft snort and turned his head away. Cash these in for Valis. Sure. Watching his little tantrum, Aina smiled and peered into the basin. The once empty basin now brimmed with magic stones and drop items, glowing an eerie violet under the light. Lu Kiming, this. She stammered, pointing at the contents. What's up? He slowly turned, watching Aina jab a finger at his trusty basin. They're magic stones and drops, what else would they be? But, Aina glanced from the stones to his utterly unfazed face. She'd seen bigger hauls, sure, but never from a brand new adventurer who hadn't even received a falna yet. Judging by the loot, she could roughly guess how many monsters he'd slain this afternoon. From the gossip she'd figured maybe a few hundred. Yet the basin held enough for well over 1,000 kills. No big deal. I'll bring back even more tomorrow. He kept his tone flat, but pride sparkled in his eyes. In the original story, Belcranel, after getting Hestia's blessing, would harvest barely a dozen stones a day even 2 weeks in. Lu Kiming had bagged 2,500 stones this single afternoon, plus a heap of drops, and he'd already smashed his daily quest quota, mission done by lunchtime. At this rate he might finish the entire task ahead of schedule. The more he farmed, the faster he'd grow, and the quicker the quest bar would fill. Aina's voice snapped him out of his daydream. Here, 1 million Valis total. She handed him a small pouch stuffed with 10,000 Valis notes, the full proceeds of his stones and drops. Thanks. He smiled, took the pouch, and pulled out a single coin for her. Promised tenfold, here's 10,000 Valis. No need, 1,000 is enough. She accepted the coin, then fished out 9,000 more and tried to hand them back. Nope, I refuse. He pushed the money back. His upbringing was simple: repay a drop of kindness with a torrent. Besides, Aina was the second person he'd met in this world and she'd looked after him so kindly. Seeing his resolve, she pocketed the cash, stepped out from behind the counter, and came to his side. Since you insist, I won't refuse, but you have to let me treat you to dinner. My shout. Food. Let's go. The moment he heard, food, Lu Kiming realized he hadn't eaten since morning. Thanks to his superhuman stamina he could fight for 3 days straight without feeling hungry, but normal people would have keeled over by now. Night had fallen as Lu Kiming and Aina stepped out of a restaurant. Burp. Aina, that place was amazing. Lu Kiming patted his bulging belly and waddled along. He'd assumed the food here couldn't rival the 5,000-year culinary legacy of his homeland. But after the first bite he had to admit, this world's cuisine was several notches better. Gods, what a fantasy realm! Fragrant, tender monster meat, masterful magical cooking, exotic spices, and recipes personally handed down by the god of cuisine. He couldn't stop eating. Of course. It's a chain run by the god of cuisine's familia, praised across the world. Aina clutched her purse in heartache. Delicious, yes, but ruinously expensive, especially when Lu Kiming's enhanced stomach could swallow a black hole. Tonight's dinner had cost her half a year's salary. She didn't complain, though, she'd invited him, and you don't let a guest go hungry. Thank you, Aina. Lu Kiming bit back a grin at her pained, pretending not to care face. He'd tried to pay, but she'd insisted the host never lets the guest pick up the bill. You're welcome. She forced a bright smile, telling him not to worry. I'll head off, then. Be safe on your way home. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. As they parted, Lu Kiming's hand brushed her waist when she wasn't looking, then strolled away as if nothing had happened. Aina sighed at his retreating back. She didn't regret inviting him. Even if she could rewind time and foreknow his appetite, she'd do it again. True friends were rare in this world, and Lu Kiming, beneath his cool mask, had a kind heart, strength aside. Home, sobbed my poor wallet. Time to pinch pennies. Aina mourned her flattened purse like a coworker who swore not to splurge, then blew the whole paycheck and survived on bread till next month. Now she'd share that diet, at least until the next payday. The moonlight miser blues followed her home. Collapsing on her bed, she felt something in her pocket. She fished it out. A slip of white paper wrapped around 10 gold coins, each worth 10,000 valis. What's this? She didn't remember carrying an extra 100,000 valis. Then she recalled Lu Qiming's subtle brush when they'd said goodbye. He must have slipped them in then. Irritation flared, she'd treated him, and he still paid her back. But the paper had writing. She unfolded it. Aina, I'm lending you these 100,000 valis, don't forget to repay me. Your friend, Lu Qiming. TCH, the little brat, who does he think I am? She huffed, yet her smile widened. Brat, see you tomorrow. She tucked the coins into her purse, the bulge promised 2 weeks without bread. Smiling, she drifted off. While Aina slept, Lu Qiming reached his own destination. Homeless and clueless in this world, he headed for the first person he'd met. The ragged, big-hearted lady. Not to admire her assets, though they were impressive, but because she'd invited him to tea that morning, given directions, and insisted he return whether he earned coin or not. A man keeps his word. Now that he had money, he'd support her tea house. Outside the tea house a girl of about 18 lounged, beckoning passing adventurers. She spotted Lu Qiming. Gulp, am I in luck? She covertly swallowed, sizing him up, clearly a virgin, cute face, pale skin, rare black hair and eyes in Orario, cool yet handsome. Totally unlike the burly adventurers. Even for free, she'd welcome this prize. Little brother, looking for someone. Come play with big sister, experience a whole new world. Thrilling, you'll be back for more. Anya fought the urge to throw him over her shoulder and marched up, voice syrupy, chest thrust forward to reveal a bottomless chasm. I'm looking for Sister Tia. This morning she gave me directions to the guild and said to come back tonight whether I earned anything. Lu Qiming inhaled her fragrance, eyes dipping into that deep ravine. Gods, this world's ladies were magnificent. So you're the pure lamb, ahem, the sweet guy Tia mentioned. Come, she's been talking about you all afternoon. Anya's tongue flicked as she dragged him inside. Inside the tea house, a cluster of scantily clad young women, all in tattered dresses, turned envious eyes toward Lu Qiming as Anya pulled him in. Moments ago they'd thought the clients who'd summoned them for tea and heart-to-heart chats weren't half bad. But set beside the present Lu Qiming, their own guests, thick-faced and plain, looked leagues worse. This boy's cool aloofness carried a shy quiver, his awkward hands and feet screamed first-timer, and that smooth skin promised delicious flavor. HMPH. Anya drank in the jealous stares, chin lifted like a victorious general, chest thrust forward as she swaggered in with deliberate, toe-out steps. Big sisters, this place is really hopping tonight. Lu Qiming had never visited an establishment like this, back home they were outright banned. Get caught and you'd earn a complimentary pair of silver bracelets plus 10 to 15 days of free room and board. Even in the dim alleyways of his old world, young women still toiled, yet he'd never mustered the courage, or the cash, to support their labors. Now, of course, he wasn't in that world anymore, and he certainly wasn't here to do anything improper, just supporting the enthusiastic big sister who'd greeted him that morning. Absolutely nothing else. GPR dons a solemn face. Just call me Sister Anna. Business is so-so, Sister Tia's tea house has a bit of a name for itself in Orario. Anya watched Lu Qiming's darting glances, wanting to look yet not daring, sneaking peeks with adorable stealth, and her own breath quickened. She itched to spirit the boy away and spoil him rotten. I'm Lu Qiming, Sister Anna can call me Qiming. Wow. Sister Anya, they. He stared, transfixed. Apart from certain illustrated books, this was his first live glimpse of such a scene. Enough staring, Qiming. In a bit I'll show you something even better. Lu Qiming shot Anya a startled look, ready to protest his upstanding character, when she halted at a door and tapped lightly. Knock knock knock. Sister Tia, I've brought Qiming, the lad you met this morning. Swish. The heavy wooden door flew open at once and a voluptuous red-haired woman stepped out. Little brother, you actually came. Tia stared in surprise. This morning she'd pegged him as a greenhorn fresh off the boat. Such a waste for a looker like him to die a virgin in the dungeon. Naturally she'd offered to broaden his horizons, gratis, no less, but he'd refused even then. His refusal piqued her interest, after giving him directions to the guild she'd invited him again. And now, tonight, the boy had shown up. Sister Tia, I'm here. Thanks for the directions this morning, Once I earned some coin I came straight over. Then step inside. Tia ushered him in and reached back to shut the door. Smack. She blinked at Anya, whose hand blocked the door. Anya, what are you doing? HMPH. Boss Tia, don't even think of hogging him. I brought Kimming here, we split the bed 50-50. Tia gave Anya an exasperated look, then turned to Lu Kimming. Kimming, are you alright with Anya joining us? Sure, the more the merrier for T. He nodded. 2 people or 3, what did it matter? And Anya had escorted him, how rude to leave her out. Fine, in you come then. Tia stepped aside, let Anya enter, then closed the door and activated the room's silencing ward. Inside, Lu Kimming sat at the table chatting with Anya about Orario, its powerful familia, the gods, factions, recent events. To Anya such gossip was commonplace, adventurers streamed through daily, and their loose tongues kept the girls well informed. As they talked, Lu Kimming compared the timeline in his mind. Hestia hadn't yet met Belle, though it would happen soon. According to Anya, the Loki familia was preparing another deep dungeon expedition. The plot would kick off when they returned and accidentally released a minotaur that a fledgling Belle would encounter on the 5th floor. Just as the beast was about to kill Belle, Ace would appear and slay it with a single sword stroke. That rescue would trigger Belle's skill, Argonaut, launching his meteoric rise to become Orario's fastest ever level 2 adventurer, famed among mortals and gods alike. What are you two gossiping about? Tia arrived carrying the tea set, smiling as she settled beside Lu Kimming. I was asking Sister Anya about recent happenings. I'm new here and clueless, so she's filling me in. Anything else you'd like to know? Tia set a cup before him and asked with a gentle smile. No, I've got the gist. I even have a plan for what to do next. Good to hear, Kimming. Tia sipped her tea, then softly took his hand. Kimming, night has fallen, let's have a proper heart-to-heart. He glanced at his hand, then at her. Sister Tia, do we need hand-holding for a talk about hearts? Who says we don't? Tia smiled, straightening languidly. My heart is right here, I want you to take a good, close look. Beside them, Anya caught his other hand, blushing. Kimming, come see my heart, too. Since you two sisters insist, little brother will obey, let's have a proper heart-to-heart tonight. Lu Kimming obediently wrapped his arms around them and, following their lead, began a very deep conversation of hearts. That night, the long single Lu Kimming finally tasted the fiery passion of women in another world, the clinging softness and tender hearts that entwined him. Early the next morning, Lu Kimming stepped from the room refreshed. The yin-yang harmony of the night had soothed the restlessness born of his abrupt arrival in this world. At the doorway, memories of last night tugged the corners of his mouth into a grin. Hey. He'd acted on impulse, completely bewitched by the two beauties, but awake again he found nothing to regret. After that heartfelt talk, coming to this world and being chosen by the profession legacy system no longer felt like a bad deal. The road ahead might be endless slaughter and hardship, but he'd gained things he once hadn't dared imagine, loss and gain in balance. Besides, he'd reached the world of his dreams, what was there to mope about? Big sisters, I'm off. Lu Kimming turned, smiling at the two who were supporting themselves against the wall and tottering over. Be careful, Kimming. Don't take risks in the dungeon. Tia forced herself upright, her delicate face flushed scarlet. Don't worry, Sister Tia, I know. Lu Kimming chuckled and glanced at them. You two rest well, don't push yourselves. We know, you little devil. The pair exchanged glances and scolded him with bashful smiles. All right, I'm really going. Certain they were fine, Lu Kimming headed out. Thanks to last night's heart talk, he still hadn't checked the stats from his level up. Now he needed to buy a suitable weapon and bind it as his soul blade. Kimming, your basin. Anya suddenly called, tossing the stainless steel basin he'd left on the table. Thanks, Sister Anya. He caught the flying basin and perched it on his head as he strolled out. Tia and Anya watched his retreating figure, then, still clinging to the wall, shuffled to the table and sat. Looking at each other's disheveled state, they gave wry, exhausted smiles. They'd clearly underestimated little brother, so vigorous. After a whole night, he still had the stamina to wake them for an hour of morning exercise. On the street, crowds bustled about. Tea shop girls, weary after a night's labor, leaned on one another outside the breakfast stall, queuing for a good meal before heading home to sleep and prepare for another night of selling tea. Adventurers carrying all manner of weapons set off for new daily exploits in the dungeon, while ordinary folk and demi-humans hawked breakfast foods of every kind. Among them, a basket of steamed buns in hand, Lu Qiming walked toward the tallest tower-like structure in the distance. Babel, also called the Tower of Heaven, legend claimed it could connect mortals with paradise. Whether it truly linked to heaven was of no concern to Lu Qiming, he was simply here to buy a suitable weapon. Before Babel, he gazed curiously at the archway, an entrance nearly 10 meters high, a plaza the size of several football fields paved in golden glazed tiles, dozens of jade-white pillars supporting the tower, each so thick 10 men could barely encircle it. A world with magic and gods, truly impressive. Lu Qiming marveled. Even in his original world, such a structure would demand incalculable manpower, resources, and massive machinery. But in this world, what were machines? Mighty adventurers had simply hoisted building materials by hand to erect this so-called miracle tower. Hey, in or out? Don't block the way, you hick from some backwater. A skinny monkey of an adventurer cursed at Lu Qiming and shoved him, intending to push the bumpkin aside. Huh, why won't he budge? The skinny monkey pressed hard against Lu Qiming's back, expecting the hick to topple over so he could follow up with ridicule. What are you doing, giving me a massage? Lu Qiming turned, puzzled, to see the scrawny man straining with all his might. Such pitiful strength couldn't even serve as a decent back rub. Gulp. The instant Lu Qiming faced him, the skinny monkey nearly collapsed in fright. Beneath that impassive face, black eyes flickered with red glints, tangible killing intent pressing down on him. My lord, seeing you standing so long, I worried your back might ache, so I thought I'd give you a rub. Oh, how very thoughtful of you. Lu Qiming gave him a long look, then turned and entered Babel. The fellow had merely shoved him, intending only some humiliation, no harm done, no killing intent felt. He saw no need for retaliation. Had there been killing intent, the man would have been cut down by Lu Qiming's reflexes before he could act. On the lift, Lu Qiming gazed quietly at the scenery outside. His destination was the weapon shop on Babel's 7th floor. Apart from the top level reserved for deities, anyone could rent space for stores. Moments later he stepped from the lift, surveying the shops around him. In display cases, countless exquisite weapons and armors glinted under the lights. He strolled past lavishly decorated storefronts, heading deeper. During last night's heart-to-heart with Anya and Tia, he'd already learned the location of the finest weapon shop. At the end of the 7th floor arcade, Lu Qiming halted before a store. Here stood a weapon shop whose scale far surpassed the rest. Above its door hung a sign carved from an unknown deep black stone. Hephaestus Familia Specialty Shop. This is it. Lu Qiming looked up at the shop, exactly what Anya and Tia had described. The store with the strongest weapons in Orario, run by the forging gods Familia. Here, he was certain he would find the weapon best suited to him. If he couldn't find it here, there was no point looking anywhere else. Welcome, adventurer. As Lu Qiming stepped through the doorway, 2 cat-ear girls rushed forward, standing on his left and right, smiling at him. Hello, I need to buy some weapons here. Adventurer, do you have any requirements for your weapon? The silver-haired cat-ear girl on the left tilted her body slightly, leaning close to Lu Qiming, her big watery eyes blinking at him. Dual swords. Dual swords. The cat-ear girl was momentarily startled by Lu Qiming's request and asked, Adventurer, are you a dual sword wielder? No, I'm an assassin. The cat-ear girl examined Lu Qiming closely, making sure he wasn't just playing around. Sir, what specifications do you have for the dual swords? Overall length no more than 1 meter, preferably all black, sturdy and sharp. Alright, please wait a moment, sir. The other cat-ear girl with orange hair turned and entered the shop. Not keeping Lu Qiming waiting long, she soon emerged again. She cradled 2 pitch-black dual swords in her arms. Adventurer, these are the only dual swords we currently have that meet your criteria. Because few adventurers use such weapons, we only have this pair of divine judgments in stock. Lu Qiming took the dual swords from the girl's hands and examined them closely. The blades are 0.7 meters long, forged from a dark metal, etched with mysterious golden runes that emit a faint cold glow, with slender black light winding from hilt to blade. When Lu Qiming grasped the dual swords, the blades emitted a soft hum and the runes lit up automatically. Looks like you like me too. Lu Qiming's fingers brushed the hilts, and the two swords flipped effortlessly up and down in his hands, producing a flurry of sword techniques. With each swing, sharp glints flashed continuously. The swords in his hands grew from unfamiliar to intimate, as if they merged with his flesh and soul, feeling like a part of his own body. Lu Qiming's aura shifted from gentle to dangerous, and the two cat-ear girls standing a short distance away turned pale, staring at him in fear. The feeling of death looming, as if their hearts would be pierced and heads harvested in the next instant, made their bodies tremble. Adventurer, please be careful, this isn't a dungeon, there are no monsters to kill here. When the silver-haired cat-ear girl sensed Lu Qiming's murderous aura, she couldn't help but warn him, fearing that if she didn't, she might die here the next second. Sorry about that. I got a bit carried away. Lu Qiming gave the dual swords a shake and sheathed them at his waist. Instantly, the murderous aura and sharp demeanor vanished, and he became gentle again. Seeing this, the two cat-ear shop clerks dared to approach him again, quietly. Adventurer, are you satisfied with the divine judgment? Satisfied. Absolutely satisfied. These two swords were practically forged just for me. As Lu Qiming spoke, he couldn't help but gently stroke the divine judgment at his waist. The weapon sensed his mood, its blade quivered lightly and emitted a soft hum in response. The silver-haired cat-ear girl smiled, pleased as a member of the Hephaestus familia that her clan's weapon had found a worthy owner, especially since this divine judgment was a divine artifact forged by their own supreme deity. However, the money she's owed won't be a small amount. Then, adventurer, an honest discount of 100 million valis. What? How much did you say? Lu Qiming stared in disbelief at the smiling girl before him. Are you sure you're not extorting me? 100 million wallace, and it's a special discount for the customer. The cat-ear girl pointed at the divine judgment, giving Lu Qiming a look that said he'd made a big profit. This is an artifact forged by our Hephaestus familia's supreme deity, sold for merely 100 million valis. It was the price set by the Lord God when the divine judgment was created. Even a billion valis would be reasonable if not for the supreme deity's blessing. Weapons forged by Hephaestus. Upon hearing that, Lu Qiming no longer found the price strange. In the original story, the weapon used by Bel was also forged by Hephaestus, but that was at Hestia's request. Hephaestus, moved by Hestia's determination and a friendship spanning billions of years, finally forged the Hestia blade for Bel. Thinking of that, Lu Qiming no longer hesitated. Even though his soul blade would grow stronger as he does, even if bound to an ordinary weapon, starting as an artifact would surely become even more powerful under his soul's cultivation. Here you go, 100 million valis. Lu Qiming reluctantly produced a black card. Sister Tia had heard last night that he planned to buy a weapon today. He didn't want to use it, but Sister Tia said it was a loan that had to be repaid, and having a good weapon would increase his chances of completing the mission. Finally, Lu Qiming promised to repay Sister Tia within 3 months, then tucked the black card away. Sure enough, women only slow down my sword drawing, but a rich woman won't, she'll give you a better sword. The silver-haired cat-ear girl stared at the black card in Lu Qiming's hand and took it blankly. She had intended to introduce him to her clan's new installment payment plan, never expecting him to pull out a black card worth 100 million valis. After the cat-ear girl took the black card, Lu Qiming left the place that pained him, having thought that with so many valis he could afford a full set of armor and weapons. But poverty still limited his imagination. A single divine judgment sent him back to square one. Adventurers Guild. Lu Qiming pushed open the doors and entered. Today he planned to head to the middle levels of the dungeon, primarily to ask Aina about information on those levels. Aina, good morning. Upon entering, Lu Qiming saw Aina daydreaming by the counter and greeted her with a smile. Morning, Qiming, you're late today. I went to the Tower of Babel this morning to buy a weapon, then rushed over. Lu Qiming lifted the divine judgment at his waist and brandished it before Aina. Aina, have you prepared what I need? Here you go, but are you sure you want to go to the middle levels of the dungeon today? The upper level monsters no longer significantly boost my strength. Lu Qiming took the middle level dungeon intel from Aina and walked to a corner to read it. A short while later Lu Qiming had a clear picture of the middle levels of the dungeon. At his current strength only the floor boss of the 17th level demanded caution, yet even that was no real concern. If it came to it he could simply pop, unrivaled, and brute force the kill. Time to assign the last 3 skill points, fuse divine judgment, and move out. He opened the status screen only he could see. Name: Lu Qiming LV16 507,000. Quest timer: 363 days 1800 Quest index: 2501 millionths. Age: 16. Spirit: 16.6. Strength: 16.6. Agility: 21.6. Physique: 16.6. Class: Assassin. Skill points: 3. After slaughtering 2,500 monsters yesterday he had hit level 16, faster than expected, thanks to a fair number of elites that granted bonus experience. He had also discovered that, past level 10, every new level doubled the required experience. Each rank up, however, gave huge gains, every stat had risen by 1.6 this time. Ignoring the numbers, he opened the class skill panel. He tapped Unrivaled, Lightning Reflex, and Weakness Perception in turn. Yesterday's fights had shown how the latter two let him adapt instantly, spot flaws, and end things in a single strike. As for Unrivaled, though unused, it was the ace up his sleeve, he had to max it. The 3 skill points vanished and every chosen skill jumped to tier 2. Unrivaled's multiplier climbed from 300% to 500%, while mana drain dropped by 0.1 per second, from 60 to 54 per minute. With the new 5-fold boost he could now keep it active for almost 15 minutes straight. Lightning Reflex and Weakness Perception sharpened his reactions and lethality even further. After a moment to feel the upgrades, Lu Qiming drew the sword at his waist. Sword in heart, heed the wind's song, walk with me, divine judgment. The blade answered, ringing as the runes along its length lit up and black mist curled round his arm. Good. He triggered Soul Blade. Colorless soul force wrapped divine judgment, the 2 blades rose, stabbed into his chest and merged with his soul. Ding! Congratulations on obtaining the Soul Blade, divine judgment. New trait unlocked Auto-Evolve. As the host grows stronger the sword evolves on its own and can devour metals to steal their properties. Sentience. Fused with the host's soul, the blade's nascent spirit has awakened, in time it will gain full consciousness. Soul Edge. Every strike now carries bonus soul-rending damage. Reading the prompts, he summoned the sword again. Outwardly unchanged, it felt alive. It quivered in his grip, hungry for blood and slaughter to celebrate its rebirth. Easy, soon you'll have your fill. With a faint smile he stroked the hilt, calmed the eager weapon and reabsorbed it. Aina, I'm off, thanks for the intel. He stood, called to the receptionist behind the counter, and strode out of the guild. Dungeon Floor 1. 10 goblins ringed him. A shimmer of light and divine judgment appeared. Let the party begin. A bloodthirsty grin flashed as he crouched and vanished. Arc flash. A silver arc cut the air. In the blink of an eye all 10 goblins burst apart, leaving only 10 magic stones clinking to the floor. He gathered the stones into a stainless steel bowl while the sword hovered beside him, vibrating in protest at the pause. These are loot, partner, no waste. I need the cash to pay Tia back and buy you rare metals. He lectured the newborn spirit. If it grew up thinking only of carnage it would never collect a single coin. Divine Judgment stared, then, enticed by the promise of rare metals, swooped around scooping up stones and ferrying them to him. Good sword, tonight you get a treat. Patting the hovering blade he stowed the stones in, hand on its hilt, headed deeper. Dungeon Floor 8. Arc Flash Arc Chain. Silver arcs danced, nearly 30 minotaurs dropped dead. He pocketed their stones and a single small horn. Minotaur drop item. Floor 8, today I'll break past 20. He raised divine judgment, bloodthirsty grin fixed on the approaching monsters. Fatal Cleave. A titanic blade beam swept forward, everything in its path split in half and dissolved to ash. He, ha ha ha. His laughter, savage and chilling, echoed as the sword quivered with shared bloodlust. Dungeon Floor 15. A party of adventurers, fleeing monsters, stumbled here and now stood surrounded by nightmare spiders while elite minotaurs closed in behind. Captain, are we going to die here? A wand-wielding boy of 15 looked at the burly leader. You won't die, at least not before I do. The captain raised his shield, shielding the youths while edging toward a wall so nothing could strike from behind. Yet the sea of monsters sapped even his hope. Would they truly fall here? No, at least the kids must escape. He glanced at the trembling youths. I'll open a path, stick close. Once we break through, head upstairs, I'll cover you. Captain. Eyes on their blood-soaked leader, the party swallowed their fear and nodded. It was the only way. Get ready. The captain flashed the party a reassuring grin, raised his shield, and locked onto the weakest point of the monster ring. Charge. Stick with the captain. With the captain as the spearhead, the group forced their way toward the gap. Around them, monsters swarmed in a surging tide, claws and fangs slashed from every side, carving bloody wounds across their bodies. Huff, huff, huff. The brawny shield-bearer gasped ragged breaths and managed another few steps, yet more beasts were still spilling in from every direction. What the hell is going on? Blood masked the man's face as bewilderment filled his eyes. Normally the 15th floor didn't hold this many monsters, and among the horde he spotted goblins and half-werewolves that should never appear in the middle strata. Those upper strata species might accidentally drop to the 7th or 8th floor at most, never to the 15th, unless something terrifying was chasing them and sending the entire pack fleeing for its life. But how could that happen? This was the dungeon. The monster's nest, a place malicious toward every adventurer. Only the mightiest familia in Orario could pull off such a stunt, yet they would never waste effort on something so thankless. Sea Captain, will we make it home alive? A beastfolk youth gripping a bow stared in despair at the endless flow. The pack had grown from barely 100 to at least 500. Alan, we will get out of here alive. The captain batted 3 antmen flying with a fierce swing, then turned, smiling. Alan, aren't you getting married when we get back? We still expect a feast. Yeah. The young beastfolk nodded. The thought of the house and $500,000 Valis dowry he'd finally saved filled him with the will to survive. He had to marry Chow Baluo. He had to marry Chow Baluo. Yet for all their brave words, the group was riddled with wounds. The captain himself sported a gaping hole in his abdomen, viscera faintly visible. As potions dwindled, stamina and mana ran dry, while the monsters attacked without end. Are we going to die here? Everyone stared in despair at the endless waves. The beastfolk youth blamed himself. If not for him they would never have risked the middle strata and ended up trapped. Suddenly the encircling monsters froze. Every beast turned its gaze toward one passage, eyes wide with terror. Ha ha ha, where are you all going? Wait for me. A dreadful laugh rolled down the corridor, heavy footsteps drawing closer. Thud, thud, thud. In the passage mouth stood a black-haired, black-eyed boy with a silvery basin on his head, grinning bloodthirstily at the plaza below. Yo, there you are, my little cuties. He greeted the monsters below like old friends. That carefree smile felt grotesque amid the carnage. Let's play some more. Liu Qiming beamed at the dense horde. Ever since floor 13, most monsters fled the moment they sensed his murderous aura, forcing him to chase them here. The open space below was carpeted with so many beasts that nothing else could be seen. Huh. Then he spotted several adventurers amid the monsters, waving at him as if overjoyed. Yo. How do you do? Liu Qiming waved back cheerfully, so there were adventurers this gutsy. Maybe he shouldn't butt in on their fun. Below, the party stared in delight as Liu Qiming answered their desperate wave. We're saved. We're going to live. They gazed up in excitement, ready to give him anything if he would pull them out of this hell. Don't worry, I'll jump in from the other side and won't steal your kills. Liu Qiming called down. He could slaughter from another angle, and with his strength those strangers couldn't poach many monsters anyway. Wait, my lord. The wounded captain, clutching his stomach, stood and laid out every harvest the party had accumulated. Please save us. Take these as payment. If it's not enough we'll offer more once we're back in Orario. The rest hurriedly piled their magic stones and drop items beside his. The next instant Liu Qiming vanished. Whoosh. So you're trapped. Why didn't you say so earlier? He reappeared right in front of them, gentle smile in place though his eyes kept drifting toward the loot. Holy. Only a bit less than yesterday's haul, but the quality's way higher, at least 2 million Valis here. Ahem, your lives are under my protection now. He lifted the stainless steel basin from his head and poured its half-load of magic stones and drops atop the pile. Carry these out for me and hand them to Miss Aina at the Adventurers Guild, will you? Seeing their puzzled looks, he explained. He wasn't worried they would run off with the goods. Before they could escape Orario, he could wipe them out. Understood. The captain dared ask no more and ordered the able-bodied members to gather everything. Here, don't die before we leave the dungeon. Lu Qiming tossed him a recovery potion. The captain's guts were still spilling. The bottle had cost 10,000 valis in the Tower of Babel this morning. The squad leader caught the recovery potion Lu Qiming had tossed over, pulled out the cork, and downed it in one gulp. Thank you, sir. We'll do exactly as you ordered. Green light blossomed over the leader's wounds, flesh and skin knitted back together in seconds. Good. Then I'll see you off first, before I have some fun with these cute little things. The corners of Lu Qiming's mouth stretched into a terrifying grin. He ran his tongue along the tip of divine judgment and looked at the monsters already stirring around him, eyes bloodthirsty. Gale Dancer. The next instant his figure flickered through the horde, arcs of sword light blooming. Monsters toppled like weeds, blood soaked the ground and the reek of gore filled the air while 100 magic stones lay quietly among the corpses. Gulp. The group stared, dumbstruck, at the path Lu Qiming had carved in a heartbeat, a path paved with blood. Captain. This. The boy with the staff pointed at the blood-soaked trail, words faltering. Move. The leader glanced at Lu Qiming, who was cheerfully butchering the remaining monsters, then led the others toward the passage Lu Qiming had come from. The monsters there were already dead. The dungeon hadn't spawned new ones yet, so it would be safe. The rest slung their packs and hurried after him, scooping up every magic stone along the way. Soon their silhouettes vanished into the corridor. Now I can really let loose. Once he sensed they were gone, Lu Qiming's smile widened. The power of divine judgment erupted without restraint. Sword beams flew in torrents, clearing whole swaths of monsters and gouging deep scars into the walls. Yura. Monsters died in droves, the courage born of their numbers shattered. Driven by instinct they fled, desperate to escape this creature more monstrous than themselves. Where are you off to, sweetheart? Take me with you, ha ha ha. Before a tunnel, Lu Qiming's black pupils blazed red. A faint crimson aura, the product of slaughter, coiled around him like a blood-bathed demon god. Wah! Several monsters shrieked and charged, weapons leveled at his head. Oh dear. Is that any way to treat someone who cares about you? I'm hurt, truly. A casual sweep of divine judgment bisected them mid-air, blood and entrails splattered across the ground. Such a pity. None of you want to become one with me, experience points. He lifted the blade, crouched, and lightning crackled over his body. A crackling hiss filled the cavern. The fleeing monsters sensed something, paused, then bolted even faster for the exits. Let's merge, then. When the lightning blazed brightest, his whisper sounded and he vanished. A huge crater appeared where he had stood. Lightning blade shadow. A bolt of lightning streaked across the chamber. Lu Qiming reappeared on the far side. He flicked divine judgment, caught the stainless steel basin he'd tossed overhead, and began collecting magic stones. Behind him every monster still in mid-stride turned to ash, magic stones clattering to the floor. Clink 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 clink. Bumper harvest. He glanced at the raining stones and, like a diligent farmer, gathered his crop. 5 minutes later he straightened and stretched. The basin was more than half full of magic stones and dropped loot. Looks like I'll need a supporter tomorrow. Can't carry all this by myself. Lu Qiming scratched the back of his head and murmured to divine judgment hovering beside him. Without those adventurers he'd met earlier, he would already have had to throw away everything he'd gathered on the upper floors. With that he tossed the basin back overhead, grabbed the sword, and sauntered down to the next level. Ding dang dong dong, Calabash Brothers, ding dang dong dong, screw your mom. La la la, Calabash Brothers, screw your mom. Singing, he carved through the 16th floor and reached the entrance to the 17th. His quest counter now read 6,999 1/millionths, far ahead of yesterday afternoon's tally. Today's haul was several times yesterday's. Mid-floor monsters averaged 100 express each, with the occasional elite worth 500 to 1,000. Upper floor kills were few, he'd only cleared the passage he happened to walk. Time to check floor 17. The boss should still be alive at this hour. In the original, the Loki Familia's expedition had defeated the floor boss, but they were still preparing. Goliath should be alive. Perfect for pushing the count to 7,000. 6,999 annoyed his OCD. Floor 17 of the dungeon. The instant Lu Qiming stepped in, he saw a world unlike the floors above. White crystals everywhere, the entire stratum glowing with their light. Suddenly the wall to his left shook violently. Huge cracks split it, crystals raining down. Gra. A massive head burst through the wall. Long black hair, crimson eyes, dark red skin. The instant it spotted Lu Qiming, floor boss Goliath bellowed. With each roar more wall crumbled. First 1 foot, then the 20-meter titan tore free. Gra. Goliath swung a titanic arm straight at him. Boom. When the dust settled, Lu Qiming sat atop the arm that had tried to crush him, divine judgment in hand. Yo, big guy, want to become one with me too? Black pupils, wild grin, killing intent so thick it seemed solid. Divine judgment sang its bloodthirsty song across the 17th floor. Roar. The next instant, Goliath's jaws gaped wide. Wild mana converged at its maw, visible ripples condensing into a white beam that pierced the air and shot straight for Lu Qiming's head. Boom. The colossal blast shattered the ground, the entire 17th floor quaked. Twin blade lunge. Before the dust settled and before Goliath could see, a white streak burst from the smoke, piercing its chest. Arg. Blood geysered from the gaping wound, spraying the walls. Through the hole, Goliath's writhing organs were in plain sight. Driven by agony and the terror of death, the titan bellowed like thunder. At its roar, newborn monsters across several nearby floors lifted their heads, eyes blazing red, and charged toward the 17th floor. Adventurers in mid-fight froze as the beasts they battled suddenly howled, abandoned them, and bolted. What's happening? Why are they all running? Every monster's heading for the 17th floor. Was it that roar just now? A veteran adventurer paled. He'd seen this once before when the Freya Familia had hunted a floor boss. Someone's challenging the floor boss. He bolted after the monsters, heart pounding. But, Loki Familia isn't even fully prepped for their expedition. Doesn't matter. The boss is enraged, summoning every beast on the floor. Without another word, he sprinted after them. Hey, Gru, where you going? To see who's crazy enough to fight the boss. He glanced back, grinning, then vanished down the passage. The rest exchanged looks, laughed, and raced after him. Who'd miss a show like this? Across the 14th, 15th, and 16th floors, the same scene repeated. Monsters and adventurers alike converged on the 17th. Oh. It went berserk. Perched on Goliath's back, Lu Qiming cocked his head. The hole he'd carved through the giant's chest had already closed thanks to its self-regeneration. He twirled the twin divine blades, divine verdict, leveling them at the monster's skull. Flesh heals, but what about the soul? His last strike had sheared off a chunk of Goliath's very soul, devoured by the swords. Whirling waltz. Blades danced, arcs of light flaring across Goliath's body. Roar. The titan froze, then screamed. Muscle was flayed from bone, only a towering skeleton remained, organs dangling like butcher's hooks. Chunks of meat the size of fists littered the ground, crimson pools filled every crater. The battlefield looked like a butcher's hellscape. Amid the gore, a black-haired boy stood smiling, eyes bloodthirsty. Ha ha ha, what's wrong, big guy? Let's keep dancing, sweetheart. Gra. Steam hissed as flesh knitted back together in seconds. Yet Goliath's hair had turned bone white, skin burning blood red, pupils the size of wagon wheels fixed on Lu Qiming. Roar. Mouth opened, it bombarded the spot where he stood with mana cannonade, earth erupting in pillars of stone and dust. Gura. From the smoke, countless red eyes glared. When the haze lifted, the 17th floor was a living tide of monsters, and at their center stood Lu Qiming, wrapped in a visible shroud of blood mist. Calling friends, huh? Divine verdict quivered, runes blazing, sword song howling for slaughter. Easy, partner, plenty to go around. He stroked the hilts, calming the blades, then glanced toward the entrance where adventurers gathered. Among them, 2 little girls hopped and waved. Berserker Senpai. Do your best, Senpai. Lu Qiming's face darkened. If you weren't so cute, and dressed so lightly, I'd, one swing. I'm an assassin, damn it. He shouted back, then turned away. Let's dance. Blades crossed before his chest, abyssal mana erupted skyward. Unrivaled. The word fell like a death god's whisper. Pressure crushed nearby monsters into paste, power flooded every vein. Across his status board, numbers skyrocketed. Name: Liu Qiming. Age: 16. Mind: 83. Strength: 83. Agility: 108. Endurance: 83. Energy coursed through him, black hair whipped in the wind, bloodlust surging. Even the frenzied horde sensed the shift, beast snarled and trembled. Raah. With a titanic roar, Goliath raised both fists high and brought them down like meteors. Let's become one, dance with me. Liu Qiming lifted his gaze, divine verdict tracing a single arc. A titanic sword beam shot skyward to meet the falling giant. A razor-sharp sword light sliced Goliath's arms apart as easily as cutting paper. Blood rained from the sky while his scream echoed. The two massive limbs thudded to the ground, raising clouds of dust. Roar. The agony of losing both arms, and of his soul being shredded again, drove Goliath berserk. He sent every monster charging at Liu Qiming while he raised a foot to stamp him flat. Boom. With an explosive roar, Liu Qiming vanished, reappearing high in the air in front of Goliath's colossal head. Become one with me. Divine judgment in hand, Liu Qiming slashed downward. The titanic sword beam cleaved Goliath in two, then tore on through the endless horde behind him. Adventurers crowding the entrance scattered. The light carved the entire 17th floor passage into rubble, leaving a gaping sword scar on the wall. Tap. Liu Qiming landed softly. A deep fissure split the ground before him, its edges littered with flesh, magic stones, and the drops left by dead monsters. At the far end of that fissure lay a huge bisected corpse, blood and entrails pooling around it. The reek of gore and ruptured organs filled Liu Qiming's nose. Ahahaha, he, were fused as one. Feeling his stats climb again after the level up, and grow even further under, unmatched, Liu Qiming bared a bloodthirsty, manic grin while divine judgment howled in delight. Hey there, little darlings, where do you think you're going? Tilting his head, Liu Qiming watched the monsters break ranks now that Goliath was dead. They stampeded in every direction, the nearest ones collapsed under his killing intent, too terrified to resist. Some, driven mad by that pressure, even smashed their own kind into paste to clear a path toward the corridor. At the 17th floor exit, the adventurers saw the whole horde turn on them. Wave after wave crashed against their shield wall, desperate to escape. What the hell is happening? A shield-bearing adventurer stared in despair as his battered shield shattered. A moment later, a hell wolf's jaws closed on his throat. He died, never understanding why the monsters that had surrounded Liu Qiming were now tearing into them instead. Arg! Help me! I don't want to die! Screams rang out as party after party broke. Hundreds of onlookers were torn apart within minutes while the tide of monsters surged toward the passage. Anything in their way was shredded and devoured. In one corridor, Ellie and Aaron's team faced dozens of abyssal bears and hundreds of hell wolves. Only the narrow choke point, letting barely a few dozen foes reach them at once, kept them alive. Even so, they were failing. Their captain at the front was drenched crimson, flesh flayed by claws and fangs. No one else fared better. Every member bore fresh wounds. Seeing the inevitable, some adventurers at the rear turned and fled deeper into the passage. Others followed, abandoning the line and their comrades. Millie, the captain at the forefront, shouted. Captain. Millie, the elven mage beside Ellie, turned quickly. Get everyone out, while I can still hold. Without looking back, he gave them only the sight of his blood-soaked, steadfast shoulders. Yes, sir. Knowing hesitation meant death, Millie yanked Ellie and Aaron from the bear they'd been fighting, cast one last glance at her captain, and called for retreat. Millie, no. We can't leave him. Captain hasn't left, neither should we. Tears streamed down the two little girls as they struggled to return to their captain's side. Millie's eyes burned. She dragged them away, promising herself she would come back once they were safe, even if it meant dying beside him. Move. Millie beckoned the others to flee. Millie, just take the kids and go, said a young werewolf, smiling. We're staying. Around him the rest of the party nodded. They were giving the three girls of their familia the only chance they had. You fools. Millie wiped her tears, gripped Ellie and Aaron, and ran. The werewolf watched them go, grinning as he raised gore-clotted gauntlets and stepped back to the captain's side. Elio, why didn't you leave? The captain rasped, fury and sorrow in his eyes. If we bail and you die, you'd be all alone. And those things would catch us anyway, so what's the difference? Elio laughed, smashing a charging wolf with his fist while the others rallied beside him. Fine. Then we fight. Together, one last time. The captain flung away his ruined shield and gripped his greatsword in both hands, roaring with reckless joy. Already pulled into the passage, Ellie and Aaron watched their captain and friends vanish beneath the tide of monsters, screaming in despair. Berserker, please save us. Swish. How many times do I have to say it? I'm an assassin, not a berserker. Liu Qiming's silhouette appeared beside Ellie and Aaron. He reached out and gently stroked the two little ones' golden hair. Senior, you're here. Ellie and Aaron stared at Liu Qiming in disbelief as he materialized in front of them with a smile. Feeling the warmth on their heads, they threw themselves into his arms and burst into tears. What happened today had been too much for them. They had simply followed their captain to watch other adventurers clear the floor boss, delighted to discover the berserker senior they'd met only yesterday. Then every monster went berserk, charging the corridor where they stood. Their captain and seniors gave up their own chance to escape so the girls could get away. There, stop crying. Liu Qiming calmly stroked the little girls' heads, soothing them. After all, this mess was his fault. He didn't care about the other adventurers' deaths, but he had a soft spot for these two who idolized him. Berserker Senior, our captain and the others. They're fine. Look, here they come. Liu Qiming released the two girls with a smile. Behind him, several members of the Ellie familia were limping over, supporting one another. My lord, thank you for saving us. The captain, covered in wounds, stepped forward with his companion's help and bowed deeply in gratitude. No need. I should be the one apologizing, my carelessness caused this. Liu Qiming waved their thanks aside and turned toward the exit. Moments ago he had collapsed every other corridor, only this passage remained, and every surviving adventurer had already fled. Senior, what are you going to do? Ellie watched Liu Qiming walk toward the corridor mouth, puzzled. Obviously, wipe out the rest of the monsters. The same gentle smile lingered on Liu Qiming's face, but wisps of crimson killing intent coiled around him, making him look like a demon god. Roar. Roar. Endless monsters poured into the corridor ahead, howling as they lunged at him. Be care. Aaron's warning died in her throat. Liu Qiming vanished, the monsters froze mid-leap and exploded into black ash, magic stones raining down in heaps. Outside the corridor, monsters' death cries and Liu Qiming's wild laughter intertwined, echoing back to the group. Captain, what do we do now? Millie stepped to her captain's side and handed recovery potions to the ones who'd just returned. We go back. The captain drank the potion, his wounds closing. Hoisting his greatsword, he headed for the tunnel mouth. He knew he'd be of little use in the battle ahead, but with Liu Qiming nearby his team was safe. He couldn't bear to leave. After today, he craved true strength. This was his chance to see what a real powerhouse looked like, only then could he aim for that height himself. The others followed their captain. Ellie and Aaron sprinted to the front, bursting out of the tunnel first. At the exit, the two girls stood frozen, staring downward. Ellie, Aaron, what's wrong? Millie frowned at the stunned pair, by now they should have been bouncing and cheering. The rest hurried forward, looked down, and froze just like the sisters. Below, endless monsters charged the tunnel, yet none came within 100 meters. Any that did were sliced by a flash of light, blood and limbs raining down like a storm. In front of them, Liu Qiming laughed freely, flickering in and out of sight. Terrifying sword light erupted wherever he passed, the ground was already carpeted with magic stones and loot. So this is a true powerhouse. The captain gazed at Liu Qiming mowing down monsters like grass and, for the first time, understood the might of a top-tier adventurer. He glanced at his own blood-soaked greatsword. He knew that level was forever beyond him, but his familia had geniuses. He had ordered Millie to save Ellie and Aaron precisely because their talent eclipsed his, the apex berserker gifts, ever stronger, and born for battle. With those gifts, the two girls would one day stand as tall as Liu Qiming. Captain, look. The wolf youth Elios nudged the dazed captain and pointed. The captain looked where he indicated. There, Liu Qiming had stopped his high-speed movement and stood quietly before the monster horde. 3 minutes left. He regarded the snarling monsters, his earlier slaughter had already halved the 17th floor swarm. His unrivaled mode had only 3 minutes remaining. Thanks to leveling up mid-massacre, his mana had risen again, or it would have ended minutes ago. Since time's almost up, I won't play with you any longer. The wild grin vanished, his face turned calm, cold, lifeless. Lightning blade shadow revised. Soft words echoed. Endless lightning wrapped around him. He crouched. Crackling light surged into his divine sword, extending the blade far beyond its 50-centimeter length. Crackle crackle. The lightning blade stretched to 40 meters. It was his first attempt. Originally he'd meant only to coat the sword, not lengthen it. But it was more than enough to butcher the horde. Dance. He vanished. Thunder boomed across the entire floor, swordlight and lightning flared, and within seconds only magic stones and loot remained. After the lightning and sword light faded, the entire 17th floor fell into an eerie silence. The once white ground was now carpeted with violet magic stones and drop items. Under the dim glow, the purple gleam of the stones and the blood-red walls gave the floor a strange, unsettling beauty. Was that dance to your satisfaction? Lu Qiming stood upon the field of violet stones. The last spark of lightning flickered out along the blade of divine judgment and vanished into his hand. Is this the power of a top-tier adventurer? At the entrance to the 17th floor, the werewolf youth stared blankly at the scene below. So many monsters, erased in a single move. I don't know if it's the power of a top-tier adventurer, but I do know this lord is at least equal to the famous elites of Orario, maybe stronger. The captain with the great sword gave a bitter laugh and started down. Below, Lu Qiming waved at them, a stainless steel basin balanced on his head. Captain, wait for us. The rest dropped their awe and hurried after him. Moments later they reached Lu Qiming's side. All along the way they gaped at the devastation his single strike had wrought. Only now, up close, did they see the sword scored earth, the ground on either side of each gouge fused into glass by wild lightning. My lord, did you summon us for something? Just a small favor. He pointed at the magic stones and drop items littering the ground. There are too many stones for me to carry alone. Could you help haul them out? Don't worry, I'll pay you 1% as a handling fee. Following his gesture, they finally registered the problem. Nearly 10,000 monsters worth of stones, every drop from the 14th to the 17th floor, lay before them. Each stone was small, but at this scale, plus the extra loot, they doubted they could get it all out of the dungeon. My lord, our packs can't possibly hold this much. The captain's face creased with worry. He feared one wrong word would earn him a blade in the gut. The man looked gentle now, but the memory of that blood-soaked, frenzied visage was seared into his mind. That savage, ecstatic figure haunted him. No problem, I expected that. I prepared these. Lu Qiming smiled kindly, then dragged over dozens of backpacks abandoned by adventurers who died or fled during the riot. He'd gathered them while keeping monsters from escaping. The captain did a quick mental count. With these packs, my lord, we can definitely haul everything out. Good. Counting on you, then. Lu Qiming nodded, lifted the basin from his head, dumped its contents into a random pack, and walked off toward where the Goliath had fallen. There, amid the smaller stones, a millstone-sized magic stone stood out like a lone crane in a flock of chickens. Heh, little treasure, you're finally mine. Grinning, he hoisted it, tried to fit it into the basin, too big. He flipped the basin over like a hat, parked the Goliath's stone inside, and wore the makeshift helmet proudly. Perfect. He straightened, rolled his neck. Ah, the joy of having a fortune balanced on your head. In this world, magic stones were as good as valise. Nearby, Ellie and Aaron, gathering stones, gazed at him adoringly as he wiggled under his new crown. They felt they'd learned absolutely nothing useful. Orario, Guild Hall. The first adventurers Lu Qiming had met sat in a corner nursing drinks. After leaving the dungeon they'd headed straight here, cashed all the stones for 4 million valis as instructed, and handed the sum to Aina. They lingered because they wanted to thank Lu Qiming in person. They weren't foolish enough to think their own meager loot had bought their lives. Most of that 4 million had come from the stones Lu Qiming gave them on the way out. Captain, when do you think that lord will return? The beast race youth who dreamed of marrying Chao Baluo looked to his captain. No idea, but it should be soon. The muscular captain broke off his commotion, and screams erupted outside. A thick stench of blood drifted into the hall. Every veteran adventurer sprang up. Blood was nothing new, but this stench, this strong from this far away, meant something catastrophic. Nearly 200 adventurers stumbled toward the door, most drenched in gore, weapons and armor in tatters. Half were missing limbs, supported by comrades, their wounds drawing fresh cries. What happened? A dungeon outbreak. Veterans eyed the miserable procession in bewilderment. These weren't all from one familia, how had so many been maimed at once? It left them scratching their heads, no matter how hard they tried, truly, they couldn't figure it out. Soon the injured filled the hall, those still able sprinted for the guild's medics and potionists. What did you run into? One guild regular stepped up to the middle-aged adventurer who'd first spotted Lu Qiming slaying the floor boss. Monster riot. Someone killed the 17th floor boss and every creature from 14th to 17th went berserk. We were watching and got surrounded. Fear flickered in his eyes. If Lu Qiming hadn't arrived, they'd have been wiped out. What? Someone actually defeated a floor boss and triggered a dungeon rampage. The adventurer stared in disbelief at the middle-aged man named Mud. In Orario, even the top familias organized full-scale expeditions whenever they wanted to take down a floor boss. Not because there weren't any high-level adventurers strong enough, but because once the boss went berserk it would incite a dungeon rampage, boosting its own power and drawing endless monsters to its side. Even the most elite adventurers could be overwhelmed in that endless tide, so every top familia spent months preparing an expedition before challenging a boss. Yeah, that lord triggered a rampage when he slew the boss. We thought some big familia was on an expedition, but when we arrived only he was there. We got hurt not because he failed, but because he one-shot the floor 17 boss Goliath. When the monsters panicked they charged the exit tunnel where we happened to be standing. We're only alive because he scooped us up, then collapsed the tunnel to stop the stampede. The guild hall fell silent. Had they heard correctly? A single adventurer had defeated a floor boss, sent the normally fearless monsters fleeing, saved most of the onlookers, and sealed the passage. In their minds a powerful, mysterious, benevolent figure took shape. For the first time they realized such an adventurer existed in Orario, one who would risk himself to rescue others. Mud, do you know that adventurer's name? An adventurer asked, and every head turned toward Mud, curious which of the city's legendary elites this might be. I don't know, I'd never seen him before. Middle-aged Mud shook his head, the famous names didn't include this man. You don't know. Right, but I remember how he looked. Black hair, black eyes, a silver-white basin on his head, and two black short swords. Black hair, black eyes, silver basin. Several adventurers felt they'd seen someone like that, yet not quite. Mud, did he keep laughing during the fight? Crazy, bloodthirsty laughter. Another asked. Yesterday on the 5th floor he'd glimpsed someone similar but hadn't believed it could be the same man who soloed a boss today. Mud recalled the battle and nodded. Yes, he laughed exactly like that. Do you know him? The adventurer rubbed the back of his neck with an embarrassed grin. Not at all. I only saw him from afar on the 5th floor, but he seemed close to Miss Aina. Miss Aina. Every gaze swung to the half-elf standing nearby. She had frozen the moment Mud described the lone boss slayer. Hearing her name, Aina came back to herself and smiled at the crowd. I'm not certain, but the man you're describing sounds like Lu Qiming. Black hair and eyes, the stainless steel basin from his hometown, and the twin daggers he bought this morning. With that, everyone knew Aina meant the very same person. Black hair was rare in Orario, and the basin and blades matched perfectly. So his name is Lu Qiming. I wonder which top familia he belongs to. Speculation erupted. Some claimed he was Loki familia's hidden ace, others said Freya or even Apollo. Arguments turned to shouting, then to drawn weapons. Ow. Jerk. You stepped on my wound. Who dares strike my little bro? Enough. Aina's sharp voice cut through the chaos. The adventurers lowered their weapons and looked at her. They still needed the guild's services, and the man they argued about was her friend. Qiming hasn't joined any familia, so stop fighting. She shooed the crowd aside so medics could treat the injured. The adventants obeyed, but her words echoed. Lu Qiming had no familia. Without a blessing he was already this strong. What would happen once he received one? Eyes gleamed. If their patron gods recruited him, their familia could rise to the very top. Imagining that future, adventurers spun on their heels and sprinted for their home compounds. Those who hadn't caught on grabbed a departing comrade. Lisa, where are you going? Just remembered it's my time of the month, gotta run. Lisa rolled her eyes at her dense teammate and lied. Only a few had realized the prize at stake, and spelling it out would only multiply the competition. Really? The adventurer tugging Lisa's sleeve scratched his head, staring at her in bewilderment. Lisa, didn't your period just finish a few days ago? Why's it back? So what if next month's decides to show up early this month? Resisting the urge to kick the idiot in front of her, Lisa flung his hand off and stormed away. So next month's can come early this month. The dim-witted adventurer looked genuinely enlightened, as though he'd just learned a profound truth. The surrounding adventurers instinctively edged away, afraid his stupidity might be contagious, and scrambled outside. They, too, suddenly remembered they could try to recruit Lu Qiming into their familia. Watching the crowd rush off, the fool wondered, so everyone's on their period today. But why are men running out too? Could it be they're all on their uncles? Within half an hour, every deity in Orario knew one thing. A lone adventurer capable of defeating a floor boss had appeared, and he'd done it without ever joining a familia. Every god and goddess wanted to claim the boy as their own most cherished child, eager to see what he'd do once blessed with their Falna. Residents noticed countless gods converging on the dungeon entrance. Even close divine friends now glared at one another like rivals. The top familia's deities appeared as well, all heading for the gate. Behind them strode elite adventurers, radiating hostility towards something, or someone, at the dungeon mouth. What's happening? Gods can't enter the dungeon, so why are they all going there? Someone slew a floor boss, apparently without a familia's blessing. The gods are racing to recruit him. What? Defeated a floor boss without a Falna? Impossible. Impossible or not, let's go see. A shopkeeper locked his door and set off. Every other merchant and citizen followed suit, streaming toward the dungeon. From above, the entire city looked like a single river flowing toward the white tower that rose to the heavens, the dungeon's mouth. At the entrance, gods and adventurers alike craned their necks. Freshly emerged explorers, once informed, eagerly joined the growing throng. Meanwhile, on the fifth floor, an odd procession trudged toward the exit. Two tiny girls, no older than 13, lugged enormous packs so stuffed that purple magic stones glimmered through gaping zippers. Behind them, a dozen more adventurers carried equally bulging sacks, each crammed with stones and drop items. At the front strode a black-haired boy balancing a huge magic stone on his head and a pack on each shoulder. He grinned wildly, twin swords carving every monster in half. The two little girls behind him scurried to collect the fallen stones and spoils. Third floor. Lu Qiming flicked God Sever, flinging blood against the wall. Dozens of goblins lay in pieces, dissolving into ash and violet stones. Ari and Aaron gathered the loot without batting an eye, their backpack was nearly bursting. Senior, the bag's full. We've got plenty already, why pick up upper floor stones? They're worthless. Ari tossed another stone in, puffed her cheeks, and glared. The pack had been empty when they entered, now it threatened to explode. Every stone is valus, Lu Qiming said, tapping her puffed cheek and dropping the last gem inside. He still owed Tia 100 million, though she'd said he could forget it. A man pays his debts. Those millions had been earned by Tia through countless sleepless nights, ever since her 3 tea houses freed her from the old trade. Even if it hadn't been her sweat, it belonged to the girls who'd worked for it, he wouldn't keep a single coin. Fine, fine. You're crazy strong and crazy greedy. She slapped his teasing hand away and marched on. After days together she knew, though he turned savage against monsters and enemies, he was gentle at heart. A good man. On the way back they'd met robbers, he'd killed them so quickly they'd felt no pain. Such a gentle senior. Lu Qiming smiled at the two little girls and followed, eager to sell the haul, repay Tia, and maybe buy a snack for God Sever. First floor. He dismissed the blade into his body and led the group out. Sunset bathed the dungeon gate in crimson, a breathtaking sight against the tower. No one admired the view. Every god, adventurer, and citizen stared at the entrance, silent and tense. Thud, thud. Heavy steps echoed from within, blood-red killing intent seeped out like smoke. Weaklings trembled, knees buckled. The gods and mighty adventurers merely watched, curious or stunned, but unafraid. In the last rays of dusk, a black-haired, black-eyed boy stepped out, a massive magic stone on his head, crimson aura swirling around him like a demon god returned from hell. Dungeon entrance. Lu Qiming stared in bewilderment at the dense crowd ahead. The first thing he noticed were the gods standing at the very front, but their eyes looked off. Those scorching gazes felt as if they wanted to swallow him whole. What's wrong, senior? At that moment, the girl beside him, Ellie, nudged his pack so he wouldn't block the exit. Nothing, probably. Lu Qiming muttered and stepped forward, letting the people behind him file out. Moments later, the dozen or so behind him emerged as well. They too noticed the throng of gods and adventurers staring heatedly, staring directly at Lu Qiming. They even spotted their own patron deity waving excitedly at them. Mahe gazed in delight at his familia's captain. Who could have guessed the boy had already befriended the child who defeated a floor boss without a single blessing? Didn't that give his own familia the best chance of recruiting that kid? HMPH. Mahe, don't get ahead of yourself. Maybe your kid just happened to meet him. And a soul that beautiful, I'm not letting slip away. Freya's eyes glittered with infatuation as she fastened them on Lu Qiming. To her, his soul looked nothing like those of Orario's ordinary mortals. It shimmered with seven-colored light, utterly captivating. In eons she had never seen such a soul. Within it she saw beauty, yearning, purity, slaughter, madness, reason, countless hues fused into a spectrum entirely its own. After the dungeon's tempering, those colors were merging into a single dazzling rainbow. As she drank in that entrancing light, Freya's pale legs crossed tightly. Oh. Planning another little trick, Freya. Loki shot her a disdainful look. Spot an outstanding child and you want to devour him. How very, goddess of beauty, of you. Loki, do you really think I need tricks? Freya's dewy eyes swept over Loki's chest with naked contempt. What business did a barren runway have here? Before coming she'd had every detail investigated. When Lu Qiming arrived in Orario, what he did his very first night, Freya knew it all. She believed that once the boy learned the goddess of beauty wished to take tea with him, he would happily join her familia. She was the fairest being in the world. If he couldn't resist a mere tea shop girl, how could he resist her? HMPH. Loki had no retort. She caught Freya's scornful glance at her flat chest and could only sigh. One look down and the view was runway straight. Then Loki spotted a certain petite goddess and grew even more irate. What are you doing here, midget? Don't tell me you think he'll join your familia. She grabbed Hestia and began kneading the girl's cheeks. What are you doing? You can't just grab people, so lame. Realizing it was Loki teasing her, Hestia flailed and fought back. Shut it, dummy. Complain to the pretty boy goddess over there. Stop blaming others. Hestia slapped Loki's hands away and glared, cheeks puffed. What's the matter? Got mocked again for your flat chest sticking out in that outfit. Idiot. Today's star is that boy Lu Qiming, can't you tell, chubby midget? Of course I know, runway goddess. Hands on hips, Hestia thrust out her own chest and smirked at Loki's. What are you staring at, exhibitionist pipsqueak? Loki bristled, fur on end, ready to pounce. My goddess. The captain of Loki Familia caught his patron by the arm and pointed toward Freya, who was already gliding toward Lu Qiming. Reminder. They weren't here for a friendly spat with Hestia. Indeed, to everyone present, Hestia and Loki's quarrel looked like affectionate banter, just noisy affection. Arg. That shameless goddess is making her move. Loki dashed off, leaving Hestia in her wake. Seeing this, Hestia followed, and the other gods joined the charge, each determined to claim Lu Qiming. After all, with their own powers sealed, an exceptional child was their greatest boast. At the dungeon entrance, Lu Qiming watched Freya approach, cheeks flushed. Her reddened face and watery eyes locked on him. She walked oddly, almost like Tiona and Tion after their morning wall-clinging stroll, as if he'd already done something to her. Goddess, is there something you need? He forced the question while Freya clung to him, brushing lightly against him. His keen nose caught a strange scent. Such a beautiful soul, so. Freya, eyes glazed, traced a finger along his cheek, coiling around him like a serpent while her other hand began wandering. Ahem. Goddess, what do you want? He pushed her away and asked with all the gravity he could muster. Freya licked the finger that had touched him, tasting, never breaking eye contact. Why? I want you in my familia. In return, I'll take tea with you every single day. She leaned in again, tongue flicking his earlobe. No. I refuse. Startled, Lu Qiming shoved her back and retreated, staring in shock. He knew from the tales that Freya was like this, beauty made her lose restraint, but still. And with so many onlookers, didn't she feel shame? As for her promise of daily tea, he felt zero temptation. It served none of his goals, and Freya devoured everyone in her familia, pig men included. No way was his taste that heavy. You're turning me down. Why? Am I not beautiful enough, or is there something you dislike? Freya stared at Lu Qiming in disbelief. According to her intel, he should have been kneeling at her feet by now. Yet he'd rejected her without hesitation, utterly illogical. You are breathtaking, my lady, but I'm sorry, my answer is still no. Lu Qiming shook his head firmly. Lovely as Freya was, she simply wasn't his type. Just as Freya opened her mouth to press further, a peal of laughter rang out. Ha ha ha, goddess of lust, didn't see that coming, did you? Your little trick flopped. Loki shot Freya a mocking grin, savoring the sweet taste of victory. TCH. Freya flicked a disgusted glance at Loki and ignored her. What mattered now was recruiting this perfect child into her familia. Lu Qiming, why won't you join my familia? I apologize. It isn't that I refuse you specifically, my lady, I simply don't intend to join any familia at present. No familia at all. Every god and adventurer turned to stare. He could walk into any top-tier familia right now and receive the finest cultivation, yet he chose none. Yes. Before I left home, my teacher, the system, gave me a task. Until it's complete, I won't bind myself to any familia. A task. Everyone eyed him curiously. What mission could be so important that he'd forego every familia's offer? Seeing every gaze upon him, Lu Qiming realized this was the very opportunity he'd been waiting for. His original plan had been to make a name in Orario first, then post a hiring notice, but this stage suited him even better. Time to launch his mercenary scheme. 1 million. Slay 1 million monsters within a year. What? 1 million monsters? That's impossible. Before the gods could speak, the adventurers in back erupted. Even with the dungeon teeming with monsters, no one could kill so many in a single year. Who says it's impossible? I will do it. Lu Qiming's lips curved in a confident smile. He would accomplish what everyone deemed unattainable. He refused to be abandoned by the system. He wanted new classes, new worlds, ever-growing power, until he controlled the system itself. And when that day came, he'd set the voice to lowly mode. The gods watched that confident grin, so alien to Orario's people. Freya, especially, could barely contain herself. She craved to possess him, to stroke and taste that exquisite soul. Behind Loki, Findiamni tugged her sleeve and whispered. With each word, Loki's eyes brightened, and she turned to Lu Qiming with the air of someone holding the winning ticket. Then you should join my familia. I'll put you on the expedition to the deep levels, more and stronger monsters there. You'll finish your quota in a year, guaranteed. She finished by thrusting out her chest smugly at Freya and Hestia, certain she'd already won. No, I won't join your familia, but I would like to accompany the expedition. Huh. Not join, yet come with us. Loki gawked, utterly unprepared for another refusal. Yes. I asked to be hired, strictly as a mercenary. Lu Qiming met her gaze unflinchingly. He knew the request was audacious. Joining the expedition without joining the familia would upend all their preparations. Still, he was confident no one would reject a powerhouse's aid. And if they did, so what? He was an assassin, wild as his fighting style could be, stealth was his forte. If refused, he'd simply tail them in secret when they set out. Well, Loki hesitated. She wanted him in her familia, but letting an outsider march with them wasn't a decision even a goddess could make lightly. She owed her children that much care. So she looked to her captain and waited for his verdict. When Finn felt her gaze, he smiled reassuringly, stepped forward, and leveled his spear at Lu Qiming. Lu Qiming, I know our goddess wants you. Still, that doesn't mean you can stroll into our expedition. As he spoke, he unslung his spear and aimed it. Fine. Bring it on. Lu Qiming hadn't expected a duel, yet it suited him. He needed to gauge how far he stood from a top-tier adventurer. The gods and adventurers backed away, clearing a circle. All were curious. How strong was this boy who'd soloed a floor boss without a single blessing? In the crowd, Hestia nudged the gleefully curious Loki. Oi, Loki, aren't you going to stop them? Why would I? If the kid defeats Finn, he's earned his slot. If he loses, he'll crave more strength, and maybe that'll drive him to join my familia and receive a blessing. Already she was daydreaming about having him in red. Nearby, Freya seemed to hit on another idea. She murmured to Ottar, then smiled toward the boy facing Finn. She would have him, one way or another. Even if it meant. Across the square, a man with orange hair and a laurel wreath wore much the same smile, rendering his already plain face comical and eerie. Behind him, a timid girl trembled. The last time Apollo had looked that way, he'd torn her and her friends from their old familia into his own. She could already picture the boy's future. In the circle, Lu Qiming suddenly felt a chill on his backside and spun around. Apollo was staring fixedly at his rear, as if seeing straight through fabric. Something wrong. Finn paused, puzzled. He'd been about to charge when Lu Qiming's sudden turn forced him to stop. He wouldn't win by cheap shots. Nothing. Clenching teeth, Lu Qiming leveled his blade at Finn while vowing silently, if Apollo dared treat him the way he'd once preyed on Bel, there'd be no mercy. All right, get ready, here I come. After confirming Lu Qiming was unhurt, Finn flicked his spear, 1 foot forward, knees slightly bent. Whoosh. He vanished on the spot. The icy spear point flashed at Lu Qiming's throat and stabbed down hard. Clang. Lu Qiming's left hand snapped up, knocking the spearhead aside. His right sword chopped without hesitation at Finn's neck. Unruffled, Finn tapped the ground, spun the deflected spear, and used the shaft to block, while his foot shot toward Lu Qiming's stomach. Somehow, Lu Qiming's own foot was already flying at Finn. Boom. Finn rocketed away and cratered into the ground, the impact burying him halfway. Captain Finn, that move of yours was a bad idea. Lu Qiming lowered his foot, grinning at the halfling climbing from the pit. With shorter legs, Finn had been airborne before his own kick could land. Cough. Got careless. Leaning on his spear, Finn stood and rubbed his chest. He'd thought the rookie an easy mark. The LV.6 top-tier adventurer had held back and paid for it. Then I'll get serious, try to stay alive. An excited grin split Finn's face as surging mana cloaked him. Fierce fighting spirit flooded his body, boosting every stat, while blazing mana fire wrapped his spear. Beastly Magic Spear. Finn's ultimate. A spell that inflames battle lust and sharply raises all abilities, at the cost of cool judgment. Magic Spear Thrust. Finn became a streak of light, his spear a hurricane aimed at every vital, heart, throat, brain, stabbing so fast he vanished from sight, only endless spear images encasing Lu Qiming. The terrifying speed and power turned simple thrusts into devastating strikes. The ground beneath Lu Qiming dissolved into a widening crater. At the plaza's edge, Hestia tugged Loki's sleeve, pointing at the duel. Loki, aren't you stopping Finn? What if he actually kills that boy Lu Qiming? Short stuff, open your eyes, Finn's the one on the back foot. Loki watched grimly. Behind her, the Loki familia's top elites were ready to rescue their captain the instant he faltered. Finn's on the back foot. Hestia blinked, stepped closer, and stared. Finn's spear rained down like a storm. Yet Lu Qiming merely closed his eyes, swaying to let most strikes whistle past. The few he couldn't dodge he flicked aside with a casual lift of his twin swords. The ground around him kept vanishing, but the patch where he stood remained untouched. This. Hestia gaped. Never had she seen a child so strong, toying with an all-out LV.6 as though playing with a toddler. Exactly, playing. She realized he'd launched only one real attack. The rest of the time he simply stood there, amused. This boy might reach what we gods ultimately hope for. Freya drifted to Hestia's side, eyes half-lidded in fascination as she gazed at Lu Qiming, aching to possess him and drain him dry every night. Our ultimate hope. The surrounding gods echoed Freya's words, studied Lu Qiming, and thought, perhaps he truly could reach that height. Long ago, when the gods descended, they granted mortals, Falna, to help them grow, and their final wish was for a child to rise, through that blessing, to stand beside them, a god. I must have that boy. Even as she spoke, Freya pressed a hand to her breast, thighs rubbing restlessly, languidly leaning against the swine-headed Ottar behind her. Yes, my goddess. Ottar, unfazed by her display, fixed Lu Qiming with a steadfast stare. Even Orario's strongest LV.7 adventurer had no certainty of victory, yet if his goddess willed it, he would die without hesitation. In the square, Lu Qiming casually slipped past Finn's spear. Only now did he grasp how mighty he'd become after slaying the floor master. This morning, before entering the dungeon, he would have had to activate Peerless to beat Finn. Now, under his heightened reflexes, the captain's strikes felt childishly slow, weak, and harmless. He could keep his eyes shut and dodge by sound and airflow alone. To him, Finn's invisible assault was merely frantic hopping around him. At first he'd watched, but the sight of the pint-sized captain bouncing about with such fierce determination almost made him laugh aloud. To spare Finn's dignity, he closed his eyes, otherwise he feared he'd burst out laughing mid-fight. 10 minutes later, Finn's skill faded, reason returned, and the frenzied assault died in awkward silence. He wanted nothing more than to crawl into a hole. He'd gone all out, yet Lu Qiming hadn't taken a scratch, and had fought with eyes closed. Remembering his own words, try to stay alive, Finn wished he could travel back and smack his past self with the spear. So, Captain Finn, can I join your expedition squad? Seeing Finn standing there mortified, Lu Qiming spoke up first. Why yeah, you're in. Gratefully, Finn nodded and hurried spear in hand toward Loki. Another minute of embarrassment and he'd spear himself. After Finn returned to the Loki Familia, he awkwardly looked at his own Familia members and Loki, especially when he saw their concerned gazes. Finn's toes curled so hard they practically dug a 3-bedroom apartment into the soles of his feet. He wished he could crawl inside and hide. Finn, don't worry. That kid is completely different from all of you. Loki looked at Finn. Having lived for hundreds of millions of years, she saw his embarrassment and gently comforted him, telling him not to let what just happened affect him. My goddess, you're saying Lu Qiming is different from us. Finn turned to Loki in confusion. He admitted Lu Qiming was stronger than him, but he hadn't sensed any fundamental difference. If Lu Qiming was stronger, then he'd simply work harder. One day he'd catch up. That child might just fulfill the wish we gods have held for hundreds of millions of years. With that, Loki turned and left. She already knew Lu Qiming's choice. She'd wait until he finished his quest before inviting him to join her familia, though by then it definitely wouldn't be simple. After all, every deity now believed Lu Qiming possessed the potential to ascend to godhood. They wouldn't let him join their familia easily, even if hers was one of Orario's top familias. But it was only one of the top. Other familias were also eyeing Lu Qiming, and the gods of weaker familias wouldn't give up either, because it was the familia that was weak, not the god. Nearby, other gods smiled and greeted Lu Qiming before leaving with their familias. They needed to prepare for the upcoming Qiming scramble, once he completed his quest. In particular, when Goddess of Beauty Freya left, her body was draped entirely over Ottar, her face flushed, eyes locked onto Lu Qiming in the distance. On the other side, Apollo wore an expression almost identical to Freya's as he stared at Lu Qiming. Just as Lu Qiming hoisted his backpack onto his shoulders, he felt a chilly draft on his backside and shuddered. His top-tier perception told him some pervert was staring fixedly at his butt. Lu Qiming spun around, divine judgment appearing in his hand as he glared behind him, but he couldn't spot the freak. All he saw was the main force withdrawing in the distance. Don't let me find you, or I'll chop you to pieces. Lu Qiming muttered as he stowed divine judgment away. He knew only that pervert Apollo would stare at his butt like that. Unfortunately, the crowd was too thick, he couldn't locate Apollo, or he'd have rushed over and slashed him a few times. Senior, who do you want to chop? Let's go together. Ailey heard Lu Qiming's words and curiously popped up in front of him, looking ready to charge off and hack someone the instant he gave the word. Nothing, just some pervert. Don't worry about it. Lu Qiming patted Ailey's little head, hoisted his backpack, and headed for the Adventurers Guild. He had no intention of telling them he'd been planning to chop Apollo. In this world, an adventurer who attacks a god is scorned. He was only a passer-through. After the deed he could dive into the dungeon, grind until the quest finished, and jump to another world, but Ailey and the others couldn't. Oh. Ailey pouted and followed behind Lu Qiming. Since he wouldn't tell her, she decided to tail him secretly and jump in to help when the chopping started. Before long, Lu Qiming's group walked into the Adventurers Guild. Because of the earlier commotion, most adventurers had left with their gods. Only those who'd just returned from the dungeon and came to exchange valis remained. Just as Lu Qiming stepped inside, a pair of adventurers in the corner walked over. Sir, I've done as you asked, all the valis are with Miss Aina. The burly captain pointed to the bags beside Aina at the counter. Thank you. Wait a moment for me. Yes, sir. The burly captain and his teammate exchanged glances and sat at a nearby table, planning to see if Lu Qiming needed anything else, and they hadn't properly thanked him yet, so it felt wrong to leave. Lu Qiming nodded and walked past the man to Aina. Miss Aina, I'm back. Smiling, Lu Qiming set his backpack on the counter, along with Eileen and Eileen's packs. The two little lawless weren't tall enough to reach it themselves. Behind him, the others piled their packs onto the counter as well, excitement shining in their eyes as they looked at Aina. They remembered Lu Qiming's promise to give them 1% of the earnings once they returned. Aina looked at Lu Qiming with mixed feelings. She hadn't expected the boy who became an adventurer only 2 days ago to cause such a stir. She'd worried he'd be crushed by the dungeon's terrifying monsters because he lacked a falna. But now he'd become Orario's strongest adventurer. After his fight with Finn, every god and adventurer acknowledged Lu Qiming as the current and future #1 adventurer of Orario. Even the former strongest, Ottar, offered no objection and tacitly accepted it. Aina, are you feeling unwell? Lu Qiming leaned over the counter, worried, when he noticed her odd expression. She was his second friend in this world, he cared about her. I'm fine. Looking at Lu Qiming, who clearly had no idea what he'd done, Aina sighed and called a colleague to start appraising the magic stones he'd brought. Oh, good. I thought your period came. I was going to tell you a great remedy. You're the one whose period came. Aina's face flushed crimson as she shot him a glare. This jerk, didn't he know you shouldn't shout about a girl's private business in public? I don't have a uterus, but I'll still drink more hot water. You should too, Aina. Drink your head. Aina puffed her cheeks, gave him one last angry look, then lowered her head and focused on her work, ignoring him. Any more talk and he'd drive her to an early grave. Lu Qiming watched the now silent Aina, shrugged in boredom, and opened his status panel. Quest progress. 73,010 millionths world time. 362 days 5 hours 36 minutes. Name. Lu Qiming LV31, 177,700 200 thousandths. Spirit. 18.1. Strength. 18.1. Agility. 23.1. Endurance. 18.1. Class. Assassin. Skill points. 3. Level 31. Lu Qiming stared at his status window. The quest counter had climbed to 73,000. In other words, he'd wiped out roughly 70,000 monsters during today's rampage on the 17th floor, somewhat short of the 100,000 he'd expected. Still, he'd anticipated the shortfall. The horde had been so dense he'd only been able to estimate. A discrepancy was natural. Besides, the experience required after each level up had become absurd. He now needed a whopping 200,000 express to reach 32. From what he could tell, every 10 levels multiplied the required express by 10. 100 for 1 to 10, 1,000 for 10 to 20, 10,000 for 20 to 30, and now 100,000 per level for 30 to 40. At this rate the numbers would only keep ballooning, forcing him to hunt deeper and stronger prey. Exactly what he wanted. The further he descended, the denser and tougher the monsters, keeping his growth rate sky high and quest completion pace brisk. At only 2 days in he'd already cleared nearly a tenth of the quest, but another floor boss rampage wouldn't happen for a while. Unlike ordinary mobs, a floor boss needed considerable time to respawn. Lu Qiming didn't mind. He'd decided that, during this joint expedition with the Loki Familia, he'd finish at least 80% of the quest, even the full 100 if fortune smiled. Right, 3 skill points left. Just as he was about to close the window, he spotted them. A bold idea flashed through his mind. He tapped the word assassin below the panel, and an inverted skill tree unfurled. 5 already activated skills blazed like hungry hatchlings begging to be fed. Tap tap tap. 3 crisp jabs of his pale, powerful finger. Unrivaled erupted in radiance, its level display blurred, then settled on a single line, unrivaled max. Ping, congratulations, host, on your first max level skill. Unrivaled effect updated. When activated, all attributes multiplied by 10, grants unrivaled aura. Targets with spirit below half of yours die or fall unconscious, those equal or higher suffer suppression based on their spirit. Foes with spirit above yours are immune. Under unrivaled aura, host is immune to mind control, illusions, and all psychic attacks. Mana cost reduced from 1 per second to 0.5, duration greatly extended. Listening to the mechanical yet sultry voice in his head, Lu Qiming digested the details. Activated, and he not only gained tenfold power but also something akin to Conqueror's Haki. Numbers would never trouble him again. If another stampede broke out, one flick of unrivaled would knock every mob unconscious, except the floor boss Goliath, and the weakest would have their souls crushed outright. With the cost halved, his 181 mana, 18.1 spirit became 1810 under the buff, and at 0.5 per second he could now sustain unrivaled for a full hour. Invincible. He stared blankly at the panel, lost for words. Tenfold amplification alone put his physical ability at over 100 times that of an ordinary man. Too bad he didn't know any magic. With so much mana he could have masqueraded as a mage. Then, when enemies closed in, turn into a berserk assassin and lop them apart with his 40-meter god-severing blade. The image tugged the corners of his mouth into a wide grin. Hey, Qiming, what are you daydreaming about? You're drooling like an idiot. Aina, having finished appraising his magic stones, turned to find him sitting there, smiling vacantly. Nothing, nothing. He quickly wiped his chin and looked innocently at her. Aina, how much Valis did this haul bring in? 80 million. Add the batch you had those two adventurers bring back earlier and it's 84 million. Only 80 million. Wincing, he reached up and pulled free the massive stone embedded in his hair, the one Goliath had left. He'd planned to feed it to God Severing, but. Here, Aina, sell this one too. He handed her the stone. In the end he'd pocketed 90 million Valis. Goliath's stone alone fetched 600,000. Thanks, Aina. He juggled the bulging sack of cash. She'd offered to deposit it on a crystal card, but he'd insisted on cold coins, personal quirk. Airy, catch. He poured out 100 gold coins, each worth 10,000 Valis, before the two little girls. Senior, that's too much. Airy stared dizzily at the million Valis. Her tiny familia barely scraped by after equipment repairs and potions. Keep it. The extra is for you two imps. He patted their heads. A few minutes in the dungeon earned him far more, and cute Lawless deserved generosity. Thank you, Senior. Beaming, the sisters scooped up the coins and scampered off to their captain. Watching them, Lu Qiming felt something in him heal. Thank heavens he'd met Tia first, then Aina, and now had admiring little sisters, otherwise the endless slaughter might have swallowed him whole. Still smiling, he slung another 500,000 Valis over his shoulder and walked toward the adventurer party waiting for him. Here, this is your Valis. This. The brawny captain looked at Lu Qiming, then at the Valis on the table. He was clearly waiting here to thank Lu Qiming, so how did it suddenly turn into this? Take it. You kept your promise, and this is what you deserve. Lu Qiming smiled slightly at the conflicted strongman. They were in danger on the 14th floor for their own reasons, and they kept their promise, bringing the magic stones back to Aina. This was their reward for keeping their word. The brawny captain awkwardly pushed the Valis in front of him towards the demi-human youth beside him, signaling him to take it. Thank you, sir. Not only did you save us, but you also gave us so much reward. The brawny captain and his team members all stood up and bowed to Lu Qiming, especially the demi-human named Alan, whose eyes were filled with tears as he excitedly looked at Lu Qiming. With these 500,000 Valis, he could marry his beloved Chaobaluo. You're welcome. This is what you deserve. With that, Lu Qiming turned and walked back to the counter, smiling gently at Aina. Miss Aina, may I invite you to dinner? Let's go. Tonight, I'm going to eat you out of house and home, you rich man. Aina walked directly out from behind the counter, staring at Lu Qiming as if to say she'd bankrupt him tonight. Last night, Lu Qiming had eaten her out of house and home. Tonight, she would do the same to him. However, looking at the large sack in Lu Qiming's hand, Aina began to doubt if she could actually bankrupt him. Let's go. Lu Qiming straightened the stainless steel basin on his head, slung the large sack over his shoulder, and, calling out to Ali and Eileen, walked out of the Adventurers Guild. That evening, at the same God of Food's Can chain restaurant, Lu Qiming was relentlessly attacking the roasted suckling pig in front of him. Beside him, several tall stacks of plates had already accumulated, all from what he had just eaten. Waiters constantly removed finished plates and brought new dishes. Nom nom. Lu Qiming stuffed an entire pig leg into his mouth in 2 bites, chewing and swallowing both bone and meat. Senior, are you still not full? Ali, beside him, stared blankly at Lu Qiming, deeply feeling the disparity. They had just finished eating, but Lu Qiming's stomach was like a bottomless pit, constantly eating, yet his stomach showed no change. It was as if the food he had just eaten was instantly absorbed. Me. I'm barely almost full. Lu Qiming threw the last piece of roasted suckling pig into his mouth and patted his stomach. After a day of fighting, his body had consumed a lot of energy, and his physical fitness had improved again after leveling up, allowing him to store a lot more energy. The food he ate was dissolved by stomach acid as soon as it entered his stomach, broken down into energy and stored in his body. After just this one meal, if he didn't engage in high-intensity combat, he wouldn't need to eat for the next month. And even if he did fight, the energy stored in his body would be enough for him to fight at full strength for several days. With that, Lu Qiming began to attack the remaining dishes on the table. Across from him, Aina looked at Lu Qiming in despair. So, he hadn't even been full last night, and she had actually thought of eating him out of house and home. Sigh. Aina sighed helplessly, slowly eating the steak in front of her. She had given up on the idea of eating Lu Qiming out of house and home herself. She'd let him eat himself out of house and home. Half an hour later, Lu Qiming finished the last plate of fried noodles in front of him, patted his stomach contentedly, and stood up. Beside him, several people looked at Lu Qiming with expressions that said, "You're finally done." They had been full half an hour ago, the rest of the time was spent watching Lu Qiming's performance. Let's go. Lu Qiming ignored their gazes, he couldn't help it. His current body was too much stronger than an ordinary person's, and the corresponding energy required had increased exponentially. His profession was an assassin, and he couldn't learn from cultivators to sat his hunger by devouring the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Afterward, having paid the bill, Lu Qiming parted ways with everyone at the restaurant entrance. Burp. Energy replenished. Now, let's go back to Sister Tia and the others. Lu Qiming chuckled, then turned and walked towards Sister Tia's tea shop. He had killed too much today, he needed Sister Tia and the others to soothe him. In front of the tea shop, Lu Qiming, this time familiar with the way, walked directly in, cheerfully greeting the other young ladies, and headed towards Sister Tia's room. Knock, knock, knock. Sister Tia, I'm back. Come in, the door's not locked. Hearing Sister Tia's voice, Lu Qiming pushed open the door and walked in. As soon as he entered, he saw Sister Tia and Sister Anya in their pajamas, and most importantly, 2 unfamiliar cat-eared young ladies beside them. Sister Tia, who are these 2? This is Yixi and Yilian. They are good friends of mine and your sister Anya. They're visiting tonight. Tia looked at Lu Qiming with a smile, while the 2 cat-eared young ladies beside her provocatively winked at Lu Qiming. Oh. Lu Qiming swallowed, looking at the 2 cat-eared young ladies who were clearly twin sisters. Could it be? I'm in for a treat tonight. Come in quickly, what are you standing at the door for? At this moment, Anna, who had just finished showering, walked out of the bathroom, directly pulled Lu Qiming in, and locked the door, activating the soundproofing array built into the room. Lu Qiming let Anna pull him along and sat on the large bed in the room. It was then that he noticed Sister Tia's bed had been changed to a much larger one than yesterday, easily big enough for 10 people. You're Lu Qiming, the adventurer who single-handedly subjugated the floor master. The 2 cat-eared young ladies sat directly beside Lu Qiming, their soft, jade-like fingers gently tracing his face, their exquisite faces close to his, looking at him curiously. Lu Qiming nodded blankly, his eyes fixed on the 2 pairs of constantly twitching cat ears. He really wanted to play with them, they must feel great. Haha, Qiming, you're so cute. On the left, the cat-eared young lady named Yixi couldn't help but laugh at Lu Qiming's dazed expression, and she began to knead his face with both hands. Alright, you two, stop teasing Qiming. Tia walked over, pushed the two cat-eared young ladies away, and sat generously on Lu Qiming's lap. Qiming, it's getting late, shouldn't we? Yes, it's late, it's late. Lu Qiming nodded repeatedly. Even if it were broad daylight right now, it would still have to be considered late. Click. As the lights went out, the entire room darkened, and a seductive atmosphere filled the air. Suddenly, Lu Qiming felt someone pounce on him, and 4 distinct scents wafted towards him. It's great that I replenished my energy tonight. The young ladies of this other world are amazing. Finally, only these 2 thoughts echoed in Lu Qiming's mind. At this moment, he was filled with gratitude for the system for letting him transmigrate. Thanks for watching.